Members of the commission, we're now live.
Good evening and welcome to what is today? September 17th, 2025, meeting of the Montgomery County Historic Preservation Commission. My name is Karen Burdett and I am the chair. I will now ask the commissioners and staff to introduce themselves, beginning on my left.
Michael Galway. Commissioner Doman.
Jeffrey Haynes.
Julie Pelletier.
Mark Dominiani.
Zara Nasser.
Dan Bruckert, Historic Preservation Staff.
Rebecca Ballo, Historic Preservation Staff, and we also have Devin Murtha, Historic Preservation Staff with us.
And Laura DiPasquale, Historic Preservation Staff.
Thank you very much, and I would like to welcome our new commissioner, Ms. Prather, and very happy to have you with us.
It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you.
The first item of our agenda this evening are the historic area work permits. Have the work permits been duly advertised?
Yes, Madam Chair, they were advertised in the September 3rd edition of the Washington Times.
Thank you. If anyone is here to testify for any of these hops, please give a speaker form to the staff and they will let us know that you are here to address one of the cases. We are going to begin by expediting the cases we believe can be expedited based on the staff reports. Is anyone here to speak in opposition to case 1A at 20 Grafton Street, Chevy Chase, 1B at 4 East Kirk Street, Chevy Chase, 1D at 7118 Cedar Avenue, Tacoma Park, 1E at 12 Hesketh Street, Chevy Chase, 1F at 102 East Kirk Street, Chevy Chase, 1H at 9 Chevy Chase Circle, Chevy Chase, 1I at 51 Elm Avenue, Tacoma Park, 1K at 6812 Westmoreland Avenue, Tacoma Park, 1L at 51 Walnut Avenue, Tacoma Park, 1M at 10210 Capitol View Avenue, Silver Spring.
Madam Chair, hearing no objections, I move that we approve the following historic area work permits in accordance with the staff reports based upon the record before us in consideration of the recommendation of the local advisory panels and including conditions recommended by staff. Hop number 987802 at 20 Grafton Street, Chevy Chase. Hop number 1106063 at 4 East Kirk Street, Chevy Chase. Hop number 1126544 at 7118 Cedar Avenue, Tacoma Park. Hop number 1129402 at 12 Hesketh Street, Chevy Chase. Hop number 1067931 revision at 102 East Kirk Street, Chevy Chase. Hop number 1130413 at 9 Chevy Chase Circle, Chevy Chase. Hop number 1098627 at 51 Elm Street, Tacoma Park. Hop number 1025413 revision at 6812 Westmoreland Avenue, Tacoma Park. Hop number 1130761 at 51 Walnut Avenue, Tacoma Park. And hop number 1119303 at 10210 Capitol View Avenue, Silver Spring.
Do I have a second for this motion?
Commissioner Galway, I'll second.
Any discussions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays or abstentions? There are not. These hops are passed unanimously, so these cases are all approved. If there are any questions, you can speak to staff tomorrow during regular business hours, but we appreciate your work to preserve your properties and in working with staff to submit easily approvable work permits. Now we will hear one of these work permits, and it's item 1J at 62032 Frederick Road, Clarksburg. Is there a staff report?
Yes, Madam Chair, this is Laura. For the record again with the staff. This is retroactive HOP application 1130649 for roof replacement at 26032 Frederick Road, Clarksburg. The subject property, known as the Brengle Burdett House, is a primary resource in the Hyattstown Historic District. As a log dwelling built circa 1804, the property is one of the first 6 residential buildings in Hyattstown. The log house was encapsulated in an circa 1864 Gothic Revival addition that gave the current appearance of the main block and is described in the Vision of Hyattstown as perhaps the most ornate example of Gothic Revival in the Hyattstown Historic District. A 2-story low-slope roofed rear L was added around 1947. The project is subject to review under the Vision of Hyattstown, Chapter 24A, and the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation. Since 2009, the property has incurred several alterations without historic area work permits. Those alterations came to our attention this past winter when we were alerted to roof replacement being undertaken. Our staff went out to the site and, in comparing earlier Google Street View images and aerial photographs, confirmed that the roof replacement had occurred under the current ownership and that previous modifications, including window replacement and porch alterations, were made under previous ownership. In January 2025, our staff notified the Department of Permitting Services of the recent roof replacement and requested that they issue a notice of violation to the property, which required that the applicants apply for a historic area work permit within 30 days of receipt. Since we did not receive a HOP application in that time period, DPS then issued a Chapter 24A citation to the property in February 2025. The citation was scheduled for review at an August 19th District Court hearing, and I conducted a second site visit in advance of that hearing. The owner, Marquise Patterson, the DPS inspector, and I were present at that August 19th hearing, at which time the judge granted a continuance to December 2025, to allow the applicant time to apply for a HOP or to correct the work. And so the applicant is here today, having done so, and seeks retroactive approval of the replacement of the standing seam metal roofing with asphalt shingles on the cross gable main block, front and side porches, and rear L roofs. Staff finds that the standing seam metal roofing is a character-defining feature of the Gothic Revival style and of primary resources in the Hyattstown Historic District. Staff supports the replacement of the roofing on the low-slope roofed rear L, which is not original to the property, is located at the rear, and the material of which is not visible from the public right-of-way. Staff finds that for those reasons, replacement of the rear L roof does not substantially alter the exterior features of the resource per Chapter 24A8B1 or seriously impair the character of the district per Chapter 24A8D. On the other hand, staff finds that the asphalt shingles are inappropriate for use on the character-defining Gothic Revival cross-gabled main block roof and porch roofs. Staff finds that the photograph submitted by the applicant of the roofing prior to replacement shows evidence of some rust and damaged edges, and that if original to the construction of the main block around 1864 or dating to between the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the material was likely over 100 years old and had likely exceeded its predicted service life. As such, staff finds that the severity of deterioration likely warranted replacement per Standard 6, but that an in-kind replacement would have been the appropriate treatment for the roof of this primary resource. Staff finds that of the extant 19 primary resources in the Hyattstown Historic District, 16 had metal roofs at the time of designation. Those are the ones on this map marked with M, the red M's. 2 had asphalt shingle roofs, and one of those had a metal porch roof, and 1 had a wood shake roof. With the exception of 26032 Frederick Road, all of the other 15 primary resources that had metal roofs at the time of designation retained their metal roofs. Staff finds that per the vision, standing seam metal is the dominant roofing material in the district and is the appropriate material for use on the primary resource in the Hyattstown Historic District. Chapter 24A8B states that the Commission shall instruct the Director to issue a permit or issue a permit subject to such conditions as are found to be necessary to ensure conformity with the purposes and requirements of this chapter if it finds that 1, the proposal will not substantially alter the exterior features of the historic site or historic resource within a district. Staff finds that the applicants removed historic roofing, which substantially altered the exterior features of the resource, failing to satisfy this section and Standard 2. Also, or if the proposal is compatible in character and nature with the historical, archaeological, architectural, do you want me to read all of these? Okay. Or cultural features of the historic site or the historic district, in which a historic resource is located and would not be detrimental thereto or to the achievement of the purposes of this chapter. Staff finds that the use of asphalt shingles on a primary resource in the Hyattstown Historic District, where standing seam metal is the dominant roofing material, is incompatible with the character, nature, and architectural features of the historic resource and is detrimental to the purposes of this chapter. Per 3, the proposal would enhance or aid in the protection, preservation, and public or private utilization of the historic site or resource located within a historic district in a manner compatible with the historical, archaeological, architectural, or cultural value of the historic site or historic district in which the historic resource is located. Staff finds that the applicants fail to demonstrate that the work aids in the protection, preservation, and public or private utilization of the historic resource in a way that is compatible with the historical and architectural value of the resource or district. 4, the proposal is necessary in order that an unsafe conditions or health hazards be remedied. Staff finds that the applicants fail to demonstrate that the proposal is necessary in order to remedy an unsafe condition or health hazard. Per 5, the proposal is necessary in order that the owner of the subject property not be deprived of reasonable use of the property or suffer undue hardship. Staff finds that the applicants fail to demonstrate that the proposal is necessary in order that the owner not be deprived of reasonable use of the property or suffer undue hardship. And finally, in balancing the interests of the public in preserving the historic site or historic resource located within a historic district with the interests of the public from the use and benefit of the alternative proposal, the general public welfare is better served by granting the permit. Staff finds that the applicants do not demonstrate that the general public welfare is better served by granting the permit. So absent a finding of appropriateness under Chapter 24A8B, staff finds that the alteration for which the permit is sought would be inappropriate, inconsistent with, or detrimental to the preservation, enhancement, or ultimate protection of the historic site or historic resource within a historic district and the purposes of this chapter, and must be denied under Chapter 24A8A. So staff recommends the HPC approve the replacement of the roof on the rear L, having found that this portion of the proposal is consistent with Chapter 24A8B1 and 2 and Chapter 24A8D, and therefore will not substantially alter the exterior features of the historic resource and is compatible with the character of the district and purposes of Chapter 24A and the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation Number 2, and deny the roof replacement on the main block and porches under 24A8A, having found that this portion of the proposal is inappropriate, inconsistent with, and detrimental to the preservation, enhancement, and ultimate protection of the historic resource and is incompatible in character with the historic resource and the purposes of Chapter 24A, the vision of Hyattstown, and the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation 2 and 6. With that, happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for staff? Commissioner Galway?
This is Commissioner Galway. Everything about the roof, and I guess it's because of the application. What about the spindles? And I mean, I look at this home and think that that's just as much, if not more, of a character defining feature. And just did the staff address that as part of their site visit?
So that work was conducted by previous ownership, and since the roof replacement was done by the current owner is subject to a court case in violation, we have kept that separate from this application, and we do note it in the staff report so that it is now documented, but we aren't at this point bringing that forward to you all.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? If not, then I will ask the applicant to come forward. Yeah, have a seat and turn on the mic so the light is green, any one of those mics. And then identify yourself by name and your association with this application.
My name is Marquise Patterson. I'm the owner of 26032 Frederick Road, Clarksburg, Maryland.
And you can speak to this HOP application and to how you got to this point if you like, and I think you have, what, 7 minutes?
7 minutes. Yes.
You have up to 7 minutes, or we can ask you questions, but it might help us if you would explain what's been going on.
Okay, so I bought the house October 2024. We had the roof replaced on December 2024 as a gift. I received, I think, a notice in the mail. I didn't see the original notice to put in the permit. My girlfriend opened the mail, and she was like, "Oh, you got to be at court." I forgot what date it was, but had to be at court for replacing the roof. When I bought the house, I was not aware that I was in a historic district, so it wasn't purposely done without putting the permit in. If I knew that I was supposed to put it in, I wouldn't have gotten the roof changed without the permit being put in. So I also noticed that there are 9 other roofs that I counted today in the historic district, like around my house, that have shingle roofs or asphalt shingle roofs. I don't know if that's the picture of the whole district. That's the whole district right there? So, let me see. Okay, so maybe not 9 from right there, but there are multiple houses with asphalt shingle roofs. So from looking at that, the roofs around us, I didn't know that we could not change it, or that was the wrong material. It wouldn't have been changed at all if I knew that I had to put a permit in, so that's my argument.
Thank you. Are the additional houses that have asphalt shingles, or are they just not historic houses?
Based on what I could determine, the majority of the houses that have shingle roofs are non-contributing or secondary resources in the district. So we've got,
Yeah.
so here they've listed at the time of designation, the ones that are solid black color with the M's over them, those were primary resources that had metal roofs. One of the resources had a historic wood roof and still does. That's the Davis House, a couple doors down from this property. And then the blue S's here are ones that had shingle roofs, which are mostly the contemporary structures in the district.
Yeah, that's what happened, is the houses you were looking at aren't historic, and yours is an exceptionally good example of the historic type on this road, on the Route 355. If you don't have anything else to say, we'll just ask you some questions.
Yep.
and get through this, and then we'll talk about what can be done. My first question for you is, when you bought the house, the real estate agent was supposed to tell you you were in a historic district. Did they do that, or was there any documentation?
Not that I know of. I don't remember signing anything that had to do with the historic district. I wasn't aware.
Okay, thank you. We hear that a lot. That's unfortunate. Are there any questions for the applicant? Commissioner Pelletier.
Why did you decide to replace the roof? I know you said it was a gift, but like, was the roof
Why-
in bad shape?
Yes, so there was rusting from the attic. I have a walk-in attic, so from my main bedroom, I can go up the stairs and go into the attic. Underneath there, it didn't seem like it was plywood underneath. What else? There was holes. I could see like the sunlight from the attic through the roof, the metal roof, so I was like, it probably need to be changed, just based on how it looked and the state it was in. I even put pictures that the roofers sent when they took off the metal where there's holes in the wood underneath the metal. I put that in the application as well. So that's what just like made me make the decision to think I would need to have it replaced.
Okay, thanks.
This is Chair Burdett, did the roofers replace any of the plywood sheathing on the roof?
So underneath, there wasn't plywood. There was, I don't know what exactly it's called, but they put plywood underneath the shingle roof.
Okay,
basically.
so now there is a base underneath
Yes.
the shingle roof of some sort, yeah. Okay, any other questions? Commissioner Haynes?
In considering the material for the roof, did it not occur to either you or the roofer to replace it with a metal roof that the original, sounds like this was an original roof that lasted 90 years plus?
So, like I said, it was a gift. So the price, I didn't really make up the price. From what I've been told, metal roofs are way more expensive than asphalt shingle roofs, so that's why we went with the asphalt shingle. Because metal roofs are, yes, they last longer, but also more expensive.
Commissioner Prather?
Could you please advise if the roof contractor was Maryland licensed?
Can I pull out my phone? Because I think I put in the application their license number. Let me see. But I believe they were licensed. They have like, on the invoice, their license, registration, cert was on there. So it was 154650 was the, I guess, license number.
Thank you.
Commissioner Nasser?
I actually have a question for staff, if that's okay.
That's fine, yeah.
Can the owner take any legal action against the realtor that did not disclose the nature of the property?
So we can't give legal advice to our applicants. What we might advise, though, the commission doesn't ask to see people's closing documents. And whenever anybody goes to closing, as we all know, it is a stack of hundreds of pieces of paper. I can't say personally that I looked at every single piece of paper in my own closing documentation, though I am responsible for all of that because I have to initial it. So what I might, recommend, not as legal advice, is that for due diligence, perhaps for the applicant to go back and look through their closing documentation to see if that is there, and then to have a talk with their realtor if it was not. But we couldn't go any further than that with advice. But thank you.
Thank you.
Are you aware that for this work, this roof work, you could apply for a tax credit that will defray some of the cost of the roof replacement? And staff, if you would remind me again what the percentage is?
It's a 25% tax credit off property taxes.
Again, it's a tax credit, you don't get money back, but off of property taxes in Montgomery County, 25% is pretty good of the value of the replacement. All right, if there are no more questions, we can talk about this for a bit up here. Would anybody like to start? No? Nobody wants to? All right, I'll start, or hey, Commissioner, I'll start, okay. This is never pleasant for us because we do feel for you, especially when you're a new homeowner and you've bought a historic property, which comes with so many responsibilities. And if you weren't informed, that is an error on the part of the real estate agent. They should have made it very clear to you that you had responsibilities beyond just the responsibilities of being a homeowner. But we have to comply with the regulations about this. Now, the staff has reviewed this, and they have determined that you do not have to replace the asphalt shingles on the back L, but you do need to replace the asphalt shingles on the main house, the front porch, and that side porch, if I've got that correct.
So that, can I? say
Sure,
something?
speak up, yeah.
There is no shingle roof on the back porch. That's like a different material, like a plastic material.
Oh, a membrane?
On the rear L, I don't know what are you referring to when you say rear L?
Yes, so go back to the section at that's probably not the roofing on here had been metal before. If they replaced that with shingles or with membrane roofing, I think our staff would be fine with either of those since it's not visible from the public right-of-way.
Okay, got you.
So that's kind of where we are now. I would, Commissioner Doman.
This is Commissioner Doman. I kind of feel the same way that Chair Burdette mentioned. I hate to see a roof tore off, because it's on there, it's doing its job, it's keeping the water out, you had problems beforehand. However, what I would like to see, and the way that that we are obligated under statute within Montgomery County here, I think it's been well documented with the staff report that the front part is denied, and I hate to say, but I will support the staff's decision. I guess that means there'd be remedial work on your part to remove shingles and put up a standing seam roof. So, and then again, it's only for the front part of the house, like in the staff report. I hate to see this, and I hate to recommend it, but I have to go along with the county code and the staff report.
This is Chair Burdette. Of my fellow commissioners, not that this would make much of a financial difference, but couldn't they keep the asphalt shingles up and use it as a base underneath the, yeah. So you don't have to you should not have to take the asphalt shingles off. They will actually stay on the roof and provide another layer of waterproofing and sound absorption, actually, underneath a metal roof. That still means you have to do the metal roof. It just means that you've already got something underneath it that will protect the roof. And also, if there is a hailstorm, it won't sound so loud, or a heavy rainstorm, if you've got something in between. Are there any other comments anybody would like to make? No? Yeah. All right, we're going to take a vote on this, or make a motion on this. Commissioner Haynes.
Very good. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission, in accordance with the standards set forth in Section 24A8 of Montgomery County Code, approve per the staff recommendation, approve the roof replacement on the rear L at hop number 1130649, retroactive at 26032 Frederick Road, Clarksburg, consistent with Chapter 24A8B1 and 2 and Chapter 24A8D, and deny the roof replacement on the main block and porches under 24A8A, having found that this asphalt is an inappropriate material for this application.
Do I have a second?
Commissioner Doman, I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Are there any nays? There are no nays. This is a unanimous vote. All right. And again, we really do feel for you. Now, talk with staff, and they'll tell you what you need to do and the time frame you have to do it in. This isn't something you have to go out and do like this weekend. You have a little bit of time to do this. And
There is the court, the court order. I can't remember How many days was it continued?
Just continued to December 16th, I think.
So does the clock start running then?
The clock starts running now.
Okay.
So he's moving towards a December 16th court date. So by that time, the judge is going to want to either see that the work has been completed or that it has been invoiced with a contractor. Until the work is completed, we will keep showing up at court and then continuing the trial date until the work is done, and then the case can be dismissed.
Okay. And we were talking about this earlier, the tax credits. If he gets it done by the end of the year, are we done with tax credits for this year?
If the work is completed and paid for before December 31st, then the owner can apply for the historic preservation tax credit for next year. But if the work isn't done and paid for until 2026, then he can't apply until 2027.
So if you get the work done and invoiced and get the paperwork in, then on your 2026
Property tax bill, the tax credit can apply to
can
that.
apply to that. And I would ask staff to also, Montgomery Preservation, Inc. now has a small grant program. And it might be something worth checking into once you complete the work, I believe is how that works. I'm not very familiar with it yet, but it is a small grant, like $5,000. That is a local preservation group, but you have to apply and they have to approve it. So no guarantees on that one, but it's also another place you can go to possibly help defray the cost a bit.
We can get in touch. We can get the applicant that information for the
Okay.
grant program. Thank you
Okay.
for bringing that up.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're sorry, but thank you very much. All right, moving on. We are going to move on to our preliminary presentations tonight, and the first one is preliminary 2A at 10221 Menlo Avenue, Silver Spring. And is there a staff report?
Yes, there is, Madam Chair. This is a preliminary consultation at 10221 Menlo Avenue in Silver Spring. It's identified as an 1870 to 1916 resource in the amendment establishing the Capitol View Park Historic District. However, the house there was demolished after the HPC approved it in 2019. This is to be reviewed under Chapter 24A, the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation, and the approved and adopted Master Plan Amendment for Capitol View Park. The subject lot is in the northeastern corner of the historic district. To the immediate south is a 2006 infill house, which is approved by the HPC in 2005. And then to the north is the Capitol View Homewood Local Park, and to the east and west are areas outside of the historic district. This was the house before it was condemned. This is four years before the demolition occurred, and it was condemned by Department of Housing and Community Affairs as uninhabitable. So the applicant proposes to construct a single-family house on the lot, construct an accessory structure, and alter the grading and hardscaping. You can see the site slopes down from the road quite steeply, and there's a creek at the bottom of the rise. Again, the topographical map shows that there is about a 25-foot drop from the street to the lowest point in the lot, which is about 3/4 of the way back when you're at about 350 feet of elevation. So this is, image on the left is looking from the entrance to the Homewood Park, and then you see the image on the right is at the entrance to the lot. And the applicant provided a number of elevations and renderings, sort of go back and forth between them here. The south elevation is presented, originally has a blank wall. That's the area that faces the rest of the district. In consultation with staff, the applicant provided a couple of alternative schemes that involved multiple windows and a couple different siding configurations, and those were included at the end of the package. The north elevation, which looks towards the park, is mostly glazed with a balcony that steps down to what are referred to as the amphitheater stairs. And then the rear elevation is nearly fully glazed. And again, it has a pent roof, so you see the roof from the east elevation. There's a model. I believe the applicant brought the model along for the commissioners to examine further. And then there were a number of prospective drawings and renderings that were provided, including the one in the lower right. Additionally, there's an accessory structure proposed in the northeast corner of the lot, which will be minimally visible from the right-of-way between the house and the change in grade. And then this is the blank elevation sort of from the wall plane of the neighboring house to the south. And you can see the terracing for the gardens and stone walkways. There are some fencing and some site walls. Some of that, I think, needs to be fleshed out a little bit further as part of the design process. There is a community garden that's discussed in the application. However, its purpose, staff doesn't find is necessarily relevant to its own evaluation of the HOP, where those primary concerns are architectural compatibility, though staff is supportive of the aims of that. So staff finds that the house's low height and pent roof will not overwhelm the character of the site or surrounding district, and staff finds the setback is generally consistent with what's found on this section of Menlo Avenue. It's 3 feet different from its neighbor to the south. Staff finds that overall more could be done to utilize a siding material or pattern of window and door arrangement to help the house be more compatible with the surrounding district. But as with new construction, staff finds that a variety of traditional and substitute building materials could be appropriate for the proposed house. Staff laid out a range of those materials in the staff report, but is happy to discuss those further, but many materials weren't identified at this stage, so we're happy to discuss that further. Staff finds that the large amphitheater stairs behind the house at the rear will not overwhelm the size or scale of the house and will not be at all visible from the right-of-way. Staff encourages a discussion of the treatment for the area underneath the house to avoid extensive erosion. Further fleshing out this space will be required as part of the sediment control permit process, we're happy to entertain whatever feedback the commissioners have at this time. Ordinarily, with new construction, we recommend a streetscape study be provided. In this case, we found it's unnecessary because of the small height of the building. Its overall massing doesn't risk overwhelming the character of the streetscape. Usually that's what we're trying to ensure, is that the new construction won't overwhelm. Additionally, the fact that the house has a infill construction to the south and a park to the north, its neighbors are uniquely situated. So staff finds that the proposed regrading and terracing will help to control erosion on the site and protect the creek at the eastern side of the subject property. And both creek protection and erosion control were issues that were raised repeatedly in the 1982 master plan. And staff finds the proposed landscaping is more formal than many of the early 20th century houses, but that the overall green character of the proposal is preferable to extensive hardscaping, which we often see proposed in Capitol View Park. As far as the accessory structure is concerned, staff finds that it's smaller than a one-car garage and will not overwhelm the character of the site. Materials are largely wood and is appropriate with the character of the district, and that its placement is behind the fact that it's behind the house and so much lower than street grade will substantially limit its visibility from the public right-of-way. So we're happy to jump back and forth between these slides. These were laid out in the staff report, but as far as the proposed house goes, staff requests feedback from the HPC regarding staff's finding that the size of the proposed house is compatible with the character of the lot and surrounding streetscape. Does the HPC concur with staff's finding that the form of the house is consistent with Standard 9? Does the HPC concur with staff's finding that the siding and/or windows could be revised to help the design be more compatible with the character of the district? And if so, what specific revisions are recommended? We're looking at you, architects, on the commission. Does the HPC agree with staff's finding regarding the variety of appropriate materials? And are there any other comments regarding the size, design, and materials of the proposed house? As far as the hardscaping and gardening are concerned, we request feedback on the compatibility of the landscape plan, the appropriateness of the identified materials, and any other comments related to the overall landscape plan. And then finally, does the HPC concur with staff's finding regarding the appropriateness of the proposed accessory structure? Lastly, staff identified some additional materials that should be submitted with the next submission, including a site plan that includes topographical lines detailing the proposed regrading on site, a preliminary or final sediment control plan, material specifications outlining the siding, windows, and doors, material specifications for retaining walls, walkways, and other landscape and hardscape features, and additional information about the proposed tree removals and site clearing and any other materials that you commissioners identify at this evening's hearing. And with that, I will answer any questions that you have.
Are there any questions for staff? Commissioner Prather?
Could you please advise what was the approximate square footage of the accessory dwelling structure?
Believe that's 15 by 15. I can pull that up real quickly. It's 15 by 15. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Pelletier?
Thank you. Were there options for that, the east, south facade? Are they in? I saw one with some windows in the book, but are they in here?
So those are all the last 4 or 5 pages
Oh,
of
okay.
the staff report in your board book. I believe they start with page 43 or 44 and go from there. One of them
Yeah,
was
I got it.
included in the body of the staff report itself. I believe the image that had 3 windows on it was
I
was
see
included in
them
that.
now. I didn't scroll down far enough. Thank you. And part B is, are any of these favorites of, or you have no comment?
Well,
It's up to us. to discuss.
The applicant provided the alternative solutions based on staff's discussion with them that more fenestration should be introduced, as this is one of the 2 elevations that faces towards the historic district.
Right.
I think more is better, but we also question whether a traditional arrangement would help the house be more compatible with the surrounding historic district, which is one of the questions presented to the commissioners this evening.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? If not, I invite the applicant to come forward with your model. Yeah. Why don't you unpack it in a minute? Just go ahead and sit down and turn on your mics and identify yourselves by names and your association with this application.
Kenneth Gear, I'm the owner of the property.
Noah Gear, architectural designer and son.
Welcome back. It's good to have you back, and you certainly have brought us another interesting design to look at. So you can say anything you'd like, if you'd like to explain how you got to this particular design, if you want to unpack your model at this point, just kind of inform us on what we're looking at and how you got to this point. You'll have 7 minutes total, and then we'll start asking our questions and come down and look at your model probably.
Sure. I'm going to unpack the model so you can see it as I talk about it. Fortunately, it broke.
You have all the sympathy we architects can provide. We have been through this kind of thing.
Yeah, we've got the timer paused.
Good,
It's all
thank
right.
you.
Don't worry.
All right. Good evening. Hello again. So we've been here before, and we've abandoned the previous two designs, hoping that this one sticks. This design is a revised proposal, and it's meant to be more environmentally sensitive, smaller in scale, and more integrated in the landscape, as well as far more cost-effective. I want to emphasize the light touch of the design. The entire house, as you can see, is elevated above the ground, which allows for all of the drainage and any flooding issues that would come with a traditional foundation are eliminated. The massing is very compact. It's a small house. I agree with staff. It would not overpower and impose into the neighborhood. I call it the slope house, and it takes its shape and form from the site. So the roof matches the grade, and it kind of integrates it more into the hillside. As far as the architectural language, the kind of oversized, overstructured columns that support the house are meant to, are inspired by the surrounding tree canopy. The verticality is taken from all of the trees that are around it. The porch in the front is kind of a nod to the neighborhood traditions. All of the neighboring houses have front porches supported by columns. So it's welcoming and human scaled. This is meant to contribute to the community as a landmark. It's at the park edge, as staff mentioned. It's distinct, the design, but it's contextual. It marks the neighborhood's transition into the public park, and as mentioned, we are proposing that there will be a semi-public community garden dedicated to Dr. Webster Sewell, who I spoke about the last time I was here, was Montgomery County's first Black physician, known for serving all of the neighbors in the community. We wanted to honor that by welcoming people into this space, creating a community garden, extending the historic values of care, inclusivity, and community into the present day. So just to address a few of staff's comments, as I said, I agree the scale and massing is meant to be minimal and not impose onto the neighborhood. The south elevation, we did include a few different options with more windows that I felt personally didn't take away from the design, but could relate more to the neighboring houses. As far as materiality, the exterior is meant to be a tan stucco finish, but we are open with that wall to also doing a sort of slatted wood if you all think that would relate more to the other houses. The roof is intended to be a metal roof, and as mentioned, you won't see it from the front because of the slope. We also intend to have solar panels on the roof to have the house be as net efficient as possible. The windows would be a wood material, definitely avoiding vinyl. And then as far as the landscape, the terracing in the garden is meant to create divisions for planting and community space, but it's also meant to control the erosion of the hill. So we are committed to preserving all of the trees there. From my recent site surveys, I don't believe we would have to take down any trees at all. And then as far as the pavilion in the back, it is very small, low visibility, constructed with wood, and this is also meant to be a space for potential community gatherings and is a screened-in porch area. So I guess just to close, This design is meant to be more thoughtful and more cost-effective, more doable, I think more beautiful than our previous designs. It's meant to enrich the neighborhood and provide a space for community engagement. So I'm very excited to hear your feedback and hopefully support in this design. Thank you.
Thank you. And I would be interested in what the property owner feels about this design.
I'm really excited. I'm very excited about the design. The timber frame is one of my favorite. And it's incorporated in a very interesting way, very unique way. The orientation is toward the park, where most of the glass. I'm really excited about it, and there are no real between each level there are 2 or 3 steps. So as I age, it'll continue to be easy to live in.
I'd like to make a suggestion that the commissioners go down and look at the model, and please refrain from making comments. If you want to ask a question, remember you have to grab one of the mics down there. But I'd say maybe 7 minutes, 8 minutes for us to go down, or however long we want to.
Whatever,
Okay.
at your pleasure.
Yes, Commissioner Pelletier.
Yes, Commissioner Pelletier, what are the piers made of? Are they wood?
They're wood.
They
yes.
are,
Yep,
okay. So this is a heavy timber framing
it is.
on probably concrete
Concrete footers.
footings that are above grade.
6 inches above.
Okay,
grade, yep.
okay, I just want to, they look sort of like concrete in the rendering, so I
Right,
want to make
yeah.
sure I knew what I was looking at. Thank you.
All right, so we're all going to go down and take a look at this model. And then, again, if you have questions, grab a mic, and otherwise, then we'll come back and ask more questions from up here and then talk about this. Okay.
I just wanted you to see it.
Props to you for transporting this thing too.
Thank you.
Can we take this on?
Yes, you can.
Basically one room to another.
It's all right. I broke it on the way here. A mini version. It's the same thing. It's just a mini version.
Okay, are there any questions for the applicant or about this? Yes, Commissioner Haynes.
Yes. Could you talk about your structural grid? It's not uniform in either direction. So how did that come about? How did that inform the interior space? And just what was the thought process there?
Yeah, so The entire structure is over-structured. We don't need as many columns as we have. It's meant to be kind of living amongst the columns and having the columns be a part of the interior space, not as an obstruction, but something you appreciate, and that's why they're so oversized. The interior walls only run on this strip. So initially, the concept was that this wall provided privacy from the neighbors, and basically the space gets more open as you move this way towards the line of trees. And so the spacing for these columns was defined by what would create a comfortable guest room, master bathroom, and master bedroom. These columns mimic the same spacing, but there are no walls that are connected to any of this. So all of this space is open space. The spacing changes here because I wanted to maintain a small footprint, keeping the house 1,200 square feet, also allowing for exterior roof or porch space on the outside. So I pulled those columns in to allow for enough room to pass by the columns when you go down from one level to the next. So initially it was kind of an equidistant grid, and I started to take some design liberties, adjusting to kind of make the space more livable and easily, not creating obstructions with the columns.
I get that. I think looking at kind of the functionality of the interior spaces, I think you need to really go back and think about that. You come through the front door, you're in a very tight foyer space. Okay, it's a small house. You don't need a lot of foyer space, but you kind of come down and you kind of crash into the kitchen, which in today's standards, maybe that's okay. But I find getting around the island, you either have to curve around the island, you only have 3 feet to get around there, or you have to transit through the main prep area of that kitchen. So I find the circulation from the foyer through the main part of the house odd, kind of uncomfortable if you really are entertaining, if your parents are entertaining and preparing food, your guests are immediately thrust into the kitchen space. So I think you ought to look at that. Furthermore, I think the living room space does not furnish well at all. Your columns spacing, that's why I asked the question, really is limiting. Is that a wood-burning stove in the lower right corner of the living room?
It is, yes.
Yeah, well, that's going to burn down the column there. You need more spacing around from that wood column there. And it's sort of tucked in a corner that you're close to the window, you're close to the column. It's a very hard space to furnish. Furthermore, you only have 2 feet from the steps to the back of the furnishing. So all of this is a way to say that you need to look at how your parents are really going to live here. I find the grill at about the worst place it could be. Your main view out the dining room is at your grill. Grills look horrible after about a year, so why do you want a grill right outside your dining room? I don't find that to be a good, and these are all kind of practical nitpicks, but if he's going to spend $1 million+ on this, which he is, you better get it right. I think you're missing a column in the master bedroom. The lower right portion of the room is missing a column. So, wow, you can only fit a full-size bed in there? Is that, your father's a big guy. I mean, you probably ought to at least be able to fit a queen size in there, and there's no way
That
that's
is a
happening.
queen size.
It is.
It's not the way I scaled it. I scale it's 54 by 75. That's a double. Queen is 5 feet by 80. So
We definitely could
either way, even if it is a queen, you only have 6 inches to the column in the right and about a foot to the column on the left. So it just doesn't. Again, I don't know how you put any other furnishings in there. So again, how you really live in this house needs to be thoroughly thought through. So architecturally, you've done a great job, but functionally, I think the house is really lacking in practical matters. I assume there's going to be a door on the master bathroom entry. It just wasn't drawn. Because you're looking straight at the toilet from the bed, and plus having a closet in the bathroom is not great because you have moisture in there, the moisture gets in the clothing, not functionally a great arrangement. Nice bathroom, it's big, it's accommodating, but you should have at least a pocket door to separate the bathroom. The dining room is very tight. You only have 18 inches from the outside wall around the table there, and 24 at the other end. Again, if you're entertaining, it's not going to flow well. I think you ought to, well, it's just supposed to be questions. Sorry, I got carried away. Well, I'm just going to roll it all into one. So sorry. You should have reminded me earlier. So I think there's some functional issues to resolve that can then influence the size of this and some other things.
Thank.
Can we respond to any of
No,
that?
what? It's not turning on.
Hello, hello.
Give it a second.
Hello, hello, can you hear me? Mine is working.
Isaac, do you need to take a look real quick? Mine works.
The mics. Oh, it's a back, okay. All right, yeah. So you just got a crit.
I did.
Yeah, you know that Commissioner Pelletier has a question. It came back on. Yeah.
Yeah, mine didn't come back on. Somebody's out to get me here. My question was about well, two things. The south facade of the house and why, I know you said you were trying to sort of get some privacy from the neighborhood, but I think it kind of looks like you turned your back on the neighborhood. I like the design. I think you're on the right track. I think a lot of things about this are really cool, but I'm questioning two things: why you would turn your back on the neighborhood and why you wouldn't take advantage of the south light, which is the best light. Because you're going to have a lot of glass on the north side, which is nice because you don't get glare and all that kind of stuff, but you're really kind of, if we're talking about an environmental, like you're talking about solar panels and this, that, and the other, that just completely sort of barring any south light from the house, I think is kind of antithetical to your goals. And so I'm just curious, you could talk a little bit about that decision, because even when staff talked about, altering it, you just put in some very small sort of punched openings, and in my opinion, it's a lost opportunity there. But I also think it doesn't relate to the neighborhood, I think, as much as in a historic district, we would like it to. But so can you talk a little bit about where that decision came from?
Sure. So The form of the house kind of defines it, and that south elevation is meant to be kind of an iconic character that represents the house. It's the shape kind of defines it as the slope house. It relates to the slope of the hill. As far as the lighting, there are skylights in each of these rooms, which allow overhead light, but they're meant to be bedrooms, and you don't always need harsh light coming into bedrooms. It's where you sleep. You don't spend all day in your bedroom. Some people like a bedroom to be more like a cave environment because it's easier to sleep. You don't have harsh sun coming in the morning. So I understand that it could come across as kind of turning away from the neighborhood because it is such a blank wall. I guess it was meant to be a kind of bold design statement as far as the shape of the house and defining that. But I am open to adding more windows into that wall.
Oh, I did have one more question. I have one more question. What is the height underneath the house? Can you walk around under there?
Underneath, it's about 6 feet from here to here.
Okay.
So you would be able to walk underneath if you needed to maintenance anything. And as we're speaking about the underneath, we did intend to put some sort of gravel or rocks underneath, as it was mentioned in the staff report. That would have to be treated with something for water erosion.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Any other, Commissioner Nasser?
Hello, Commissioner Nasser. I have two questions. One is, would the setbacks allow you to change the width of the building if you want to, or you're within the limits of the?
No, exactly on the
It's your
limits.
exact.
It's 10 feet on one side and 8 on the other.
How about the back? Can you go back
On the
further?
back, we could go back, yeah.
Second question, the structure, the timber, the cross timber that you have as your support, can you go smaller in size for those, or that's
We
something that?
could, yes. They're intentionally
I understand,
oversized.
I understand the intention, but there, as Commissioner Haynes mentioned, there are some functional issues that I was hoping that we can address by maybe resizing some of those, but we get to the comment part. Thank you.
Commissioner Prather?
Could you please describe the community use that I think I heard you earlier reference?
Yes, absolutely. There would be, if maybe we could flip to the aerial view. There's a rendering that shows kind of a diagram of all of it. If maybe one more there, that's great. So in the front, you can see the terraced gardening underneath the bridge to the house, and in the back, you can see the terraced gardening in front of the pavilion. And this is meant to be a community space where my father could host events for people to come plant vegetables or enjoy a nice day, sit on the pavilion steps, maybe have a barbecue. But really, there would be certain times where he'd like to welcome in neighbors and people in the surrounding area.
I can add to that. A number of the neighbors I've made friends with already, and a lot of serious gardening experience in the neighborhood. And the mention of me having my yard being just natural garden, I've got about 5 or 6 neighbors who are looking forward to helping me plant. So there's, and part of it, probably the front part of the garden will likely be more flowers, more formal garden. The mid part is where we put maybe some food that we grow, some vegetables, and then the rear part, it will be trees, maybe even fruit trees. That's the thinking of how to handle that.
As a follow-up, could you please advise for for the community use, is that intended for your private functions, or is it public, anything public-facing?
Well, people can come by the front and look at the formal garden. And I've been thinking that, like, on Sunday afternoons from 12 to 3, I'd have the garden open for community members. There's a gate, and they could walk down the side.
And my last question is any part of this compliant with Americans with Disabilities Act?
Doesn't need to be.
With a slope, it's gonna be difficult. I'd have to put in maybe a lift. There's space in the back toward the retaining wall, which is pretty necessary because that slope comes down and water does. If you've been to this area, you'll notice that water comes from the park and comes all the way in. The flood, it comes right down the lot. So it's pretty evenly distributed as that water comes down. So there is a retaining wall that separates the park from the residential property. It's only 3 feet high, but it will allow us to put some tubing in there to move the water away. What was your original question? Your question, I'm sorry.
The original question was, I heard the term community,
Yes.
and I wanted to see how communal it was,
Yeah.
if it were public-facing or if it was more private, and if so, what were
It's
the?
more private.
Okay, thank you.
Semi-public.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Commissioner Prather and members of the board, just to add for that, that was a new part of the proposal. Our team would work with the applicant and with the county zoning staff and the Department of Permitting Services, also to see like where the line is between public and private and, you know, communal spaces on this property, just to make sure that everything is hashed out up front as you're working on your permits.
I've thought about liability with the steps in there, and that would be helpful.
Commissioner Dillman.
This is Commissioner Doman. I just want to say I think this is really a unique design, okay? I've seen the first two that you had, but this one here plays on a lot of things, and I appreciate your explanation of why you chose what you did about the north side, about how you have to be able to walk around. It also kind of plays on a Japanese theme for me, anyway. Is that the openness and the exposed wood in it looks quite Japanese-y. I don't know if that was ever your intent or not, but it certainly does play on that theme anyway. My one concern is, I do gardening in I have raised beds in the backyard. You need a shed somewhere. I don't know if this little thing in the back, which is called the screened-in pavilion, but you're gonna have lawn care, you're gonna have shovels, you're gonna have rakes, you're gonna have all kinds of things. And if you don't have a place to put it, because you don't have a garage, okay? Usually, most people nowadays will have a garage and everything is stuffed inside the garage. You don't have a garage here. And if you don't do that, people stuff it underneath the house. So if you are not careful, you're gonna have piles of things stuck underneath the house, which doesn't look good to start with. But you need some external storage very much on this property, because you have a lot of grass to take care of, you have a lot of, and if you're gonna do gardening, you need place for all your tools. So that would be, I think it maybe, instead of the pavilion, maybe that's the place where you put your shed or your ancillary building, something back there to take care of it. So, but I do like the design. I don't know about the functionality of it, but I think architecturally, I think it's bold, and I think it's very attractive, you know? Except for the south wall, which is a little bit plain, you know, and not welcoming, but other than that, I think it's an interesting design, so good luck.
Any questions? No? If not, okay, I'll ask a couple. I would like to ask a couple of questions, yeah. Okay, first one is, I mean, this is a design, schematic design. You haven't talked to a structural engineer yet?
No.
No.
We've talked to engineers who would fabricate the columns and the roof. That's the first part. And
Okay. And you haven't talked to a mechanical engineer about what kind of system you need to heat and air condition this?
No.
Okay, because that kind of goes to the, where is that equipment? Where have you hidden that along, kind of like with your garden shed kind of thing?
For mechanical, we planned on using radiant heat flooring
Okay,
because this is a concrete slab. So we can run the tubing in. In terms of mechanical, didn't we talk about putting the mechanical room under the house?
yeah, we have a few thoughts about it.
Okay.
One idea was to take these 4 columns underneath, kind of create an enclosed room underneath, kind of hide it in the back, and everything shoots upwards. From a design standpoint, I would love to keep it clean, but I think practically we probably need that. If there would be a way to tuck it in the closets, that's another idea of why I put them there, is that mechanical could live in this space and the underground could be clean, but we're still figuring that out.
your dad doesn't need clothes, you know, or books or any of that kind of stuff. Let's see, what else? I don't really have any other questions, simply because I'll get into the whole crit thing again. No offense, Commissioner Haynes. But when I opened this up, and it was like, wow, this, I'm blown away by this. This is just like, I didn't know how to take it because it was just so different. And then once you start looking at it and kind of pulling back from the whole historic district thing and the whole what is architecture in DC versus places where architecture just gets a lot more interesting, then it started to appeal. And it is much better than your 2 previous presentations, simply because, as you well know, you don't ever go with your first design because it's not your best design. Keep working, keep working, keep working, because your design will get better. And this is really interesting. There are a couple of things. There's those messy things that you have to make space for, like mechanical equipment and garden sheds, handicapped access, all of that kind of stuff, which you wouldn't have to provide if you don't allow access to the public, but if you do, then it gets complicated. I do think you had mentioned earlier that your wooden piers are on a concrete, a pier that's 6 inches above ground. You're going to need more than that. You're going to need a lot more. You cannot run the risk that any flooding or moisture is going to migrate up through that concrete or flow over the concrete and start rotting out the supports of your house. So you want to check with the structural engineer about that, how high you need to be, and the county code will also, the permit review might have a say on that. I understand your point about that south side and wanting that to reflect the overall, form of the house and what you're trying to say, but it's a little spare, and I think you can do the same thing with a lot more variety or a lot more finesse. And you can add some glazing, you can add some patterning of the wood, anything, just a plain wall's a plain wall. And it doesn't take, and you could put in some beautiful, glazing that's frosted that would allow the light in. You could do it with just material changes. It would make it much more striking, especially for your neighbor to look at. But it's one of those, when you're doing your photo shots of your finished project, and you're not getting a shot of a plain wall, because no one's ever going to take a picture of a plain wall. It'll be something spectacular, particularly if you put some texture on it that catches the light as it moves during the day. Might be kind of fun. I think it's a really interesting idea. It looks much more probable than your previous options. And that's good. That's growth. I do think you need to look at your plan and kind of shift maybe some spaces around, because Commissioner Haynes is correct that there's some tight, uncomfortable spots. And you might actually consider shifting your entry foyer from the center to the north. And that way, that center portion can be an office and a bathroom, and people can get to that bathroom without being right there in the foyer. It provides a little bit more of a flexible space, and it also gets that foyer so that it comes into the dining area and not into the kitchen. And, you know, walls go where walls go. So make your walls go where they need to go to get the furniture in. And other than that, I'm very impressed. I think I look forward to seeing what you come back with once you've started really getting into the nitty-gritty of this and looking into materials and into some of the door units you'll want to use. There's some wonderful products out there now, very nice ones. So that's my opinion. Would anybody like to, Commissioner Dominiani, you haven't spoken tonight.
This is Commissioner Dominiani. I would just like to echo what a few of the other commissioners have said, but also challenge you a little bit on your fencing and on your railings as well. If you'd like to have fence all the way up at that front property line, considering what the neighbors have done and also what would be approvable by code as well. I know previously you had a larger parking pad and garage, and then some of the fences were set back further and down lower on the site as well. If you're intending to have sort of circulation through that garden, considering where you're closing things off or opening them up, and how the railings may impede the flow in some cases down through the garden. I agree with the other commissioners that the way that this has been iterated is very interesting and very cool, and I appreciate as well the reference you're making to the previous owner of the historic house on the site. It's excellent to invoke his name, and I appreciate that you'll work with our staff too to perhaps honor him as well. I would challenge you to remember what the historic house on the site previously looked like too, and wonder if you could take any references from that in your materials or your fenestration, or perhaps other parts of the, especially on that blank wall, which is south facing, if there's a way to reference that older house and some of its materials, including its wood siding and others. It might be a way to help bring forward some of what was lost when that house was demolished. Could be something to keep in mind. I think that'll pause my comments for now for that, but other than that, great job iterating. Looking forward to seeing this as it evolves further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Nasser?
All right. I don't want to repeat many of the comments. I'm just going to add a couple. I really like the idea. I love timber structures. I'm all for it. But as Commissioner Haynes and some other members mentioned, there are some functional issues. I also love small houses. I feel like sometimes our houses are too big for no good reason. But if you can look at the plan a little bit closer and maybe just extend the whole building east, not adding another bay, maybe just stretch it a little bit to give some breathing room to some of these rooms so they can function better. Like, for example, your guest room, if they want to take a shower, they have to go to your master bedroom and go to the master bathroom and take a shower. There are just some issues that if you look at the plan, you can see it. I mean, think about the appliances, what goes into a house, like a TV, things that you might just ignore, but the plan has to have some room for them. So if you can maybe shrink the structure a little bit, a combination of adding just a little bit to the building to give the spaces a little bit more room. Of course, think about mechanical. Those are the things that always mess up your design. You love your idea, you love your design, and at the end of the day, they kind of have to guide you to make some changes. On the south wall, I understand why you have the solid walls, but I think you can do a few things. Maybe stop the solid south wall at the porch and have like an all-around open porch. Out of the fenestration options, I like the third option with the square windows. I think they're nice and give some interest to the facade. You can also maybe express the grid and have some kind of battens, some kind of vertical elements to break up the solid wall, not necessarily openings. So what else? I guess that's all. That's all I have. But very interesting design. I'm looking forward to seeing it more developed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Pelletier?
Oh, it's working. I had a question about the spaces on the north side. What are those? The narrow sort of, well, on the plan,
these.
there's a sink. And are they balconies?
Yes.
Oh, that's the barbecue. Okay, sorry. Never mind. I get it now. I keep wanting to flip this thing because this facade that we're looking at here on the north side that's on the dark side of the house is so inviting, and it would look so much better on the other side of the house where you're coming down the street and you see this really cool cascading walkway. And I know you're not going to do it because you want the privacy and all that kind of stuff, but the dark cave bedrooms would be awesome on the north side of the house. And what I'm looking at right now, I'm like, that's an awesome looking entry to a house. Like if you come around the corner and you have the more traditional house here, and you're coming up on this house and you see this really glassy facade that's like stepping down the hill, I think that would be so much cooler. I appreciate that. I just keep thinking if you're gonna do a community thing, you have to show movies on that big blank, you know, like you're gonna have to do what do you call it, an amphitheater there so that all the neighbors can come and look at the movies that you're gonna project on the side of the house there. But I think you have a really awesome elevation on the other side that nobody's ever gonna see. And so I know there's issues with the plan. I mean, I agree with Commissioner Haynes and everybody that like spaces are small. I think you have too many doors. I don't think you need all these doors swinging into your bedrooms and stuff. But I just keep looking at that elevation and thinking that would just be an amazing end to that street, because I know it ends, you know, but to have it end and just have this big, I mean, if you wanted to sort of turn it into an art piece and make it a painting and with some punched openings and whatever, I think that could be cool too. But I think you've really got something going with the north side that you're not sharing with the neighborhood, and I think it's kind of a missed opportunity. Also, I was just wondering about, I think somebody else mentioned taking the circulation and running it on one side of the house so that you have all the rest of it to kind of work with the spaces, because you've got this very, very strong spine that's like you have it kind of as those balconies on the north side, but if you shifted the entry of the house over so that you had this kind of consistent directional circulation all the way to the backyard on one side of the house, then you could really get creative with the spaces on the other side. But I think it's really cool. I think it'd be really, really a nice addition to the neighborhood. I just feel like it needs to be a little more neighborly with the community element that you're talking about. I think opening it up to the community side, I think I just really love this side of the house. I think it's a shame that it's going to face the woods and only the raccoons are going to see it. So those, what?
The deer.
Oh, and the deer, yeah, and the squirrels and the birds. So those are my comments, but good luck to you.
Commissioner Prather, would you like to make some comments before I go to this end of the table?
So I think that there's a lot of wisdom that has been shared, and I just encourage you to listen and refine accordingly, and you're going to get there. So congratulations.
Thank you. So on this end, no, Commissioner Galway. We'll start.
Commissioner Galway, First of all, I want to commend you on your 7-minute presentation. I think it was one of the most well thought out. Well, it just was, you nailed it in terms of why you did what you did, and you came in on time, and I just want you to know that was really well thought out. If I was your dad sitting next to you and not the client, I'd be pretty darn proud of my son. So I want to let you know that. Staff asked us to comment on a few things, the massing and the appropriativeness of the building on the site, and I actually think, when I see that, I think, it's not a PVC box. It's not some vinyl sided something or other that we have to sit here and just go, oh my gosh, not another one in the neighborhood. I think what you're doing is a really great thing. The scale, I think, is totally appropriate. The fact that you're following the site, I think that's fantastic. You can do what you need to do on the roof. What I heard and what you heard is a lot of architects who are the commissioners here who are giving you really good architectural design, charrette information, and I think you should take that all in, soak it in, and think about all those things. We try not to get too involved internally, but it's hard not to sometimes. I'm the mechanical engineer, so I had the same concerns that one of the commissioners mentioned about how do you get that water pipe up into the building? How do you get that sanitary pipe down out of the building? How do you, if you're talking about radiant heat, you're going to need a boiler, and that boiler's going to have to be somewhere. You can't put that on the roof, and it's going to, so the idea that you may have to create a space at the back for all of those types of things, it's going to, yes, I'm the bad guy, it's going to ruin your pure architectural concept, but you're going to have to think about how you do that. Maybe you can put it in the ground, think outside the box. There might be ways to do that, but you still have to get your utilities either up next to a column or create a fake column where you can run the utilities up and down to get up there. You don't want this piping freezing. If that's a concrete slab, is there space underneath that's heated so that the sanitary piping that's in the slab or underneath the slab is not exposed, the water lines aren't exposed? So there's a lot of things that you'll have to think through. It's a smaller home, 1,200 square feet, I think you said. It's an expensive, smaller home, so just be aware of that as you develop the details, because there's a lot of things there that could jack up the price for you. So just be careful. That in terms of massing, and we usually just think of the volume itself, but when I see that south wall, I think of that also as massing. And like most of the other commissioners, it's just too much space. Maybe a green wall, maybe a screen, maybe, you don't necessarily have to put windows in there. Maybe they're spandrel panels that look like windows, but they're not really visible, so that you're not worried about, you're still getting your privacy. When you walk out tonight, take a look at this green wall over here. Something like that might be very attractive. It would break up that massive wall, but then still maintain the privacy that you're looking for. So I would say consider that. So all in all, I certainly think I'm excited about what you're doing. Work out the details, work out the functionality, and come on back, and I hope that you can pull this off. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Doman, had you finished earlier, or? You're done, okay. Commissioner Haynes, do you have any final?
Yeah, I do have some final comments. I share the sentiments of the other commissioners. I mean, it's a very architecturally very interesting project. I love the timber structure that you proposed and the rationale behind it. All the architectural moves are good and spot on. The fact that this happens at the edge of the neighborhood seems also very appropriate, that it's this pavilion in the park almost idea that is very classic. Okay, so you're on the right track there. It is a very interesting house. It's now a matter of refinement and practicality, as you've heard from some of the other commissioners. And those details are what's going to make this a really good house, or a so-so house in terms of how it functions, how it lives, how it ages, all those things that go beyond sort of the architectural conceptual stuff that as a young designer, that's what when you can master those details, then you'll really have it all together. So you've sort of got the concept stuff. Now we got to get to the reality. And when those two merge and they're the same quality of effort, then you're going to have a masterpiece. But until then, I have some thoughts. In addition to going back and really understanding how your folks, what kind of furnishings do they like? How many people do they want to entertain? Like I said, your living room. I know it wouldn't fit my small family in there. So really study those. I think architecturally, some moves for you to consider. I would pull the north and the west columns forward, disengage them from the exterior envelope, skinned. Pull them forward to the edges. You can extend your overhangs more. That way they'll really read in 360, people will be able to experience them. Instead of having walls engage them, the exterior walls engage them, pull them forward in each direction so that they are sort of freestanding. And then let your perimeter wall, float in between the grid. And that way you're not having those exterior walls intersect your columns at funky interior corners, et cetera. And then the other thing I would do is your spec says you have 80-inch tall doors. Those are too short. Those glass walls should go all the way up, especially on this facade. That should just be a glass wall. You can even do that on the front. Just like you've done on the east wall, which is disengaged from the columns, and you have lots of glass there. I personally make those floor to ceiling myself, but the more you can disengage the perimeter columns anyways from the envelope, I think it's going to be a stronger design. Interestingly enough, I'm not so overly concerned about the south wall. It's kind of the interior wall. It's kind of between houses. Having a blank wall there, I think, can be okay. It's the private side. I don't think I would flip it myself. I think I would keep it as the private side. But I do think you might consider moving the entry. Frank Lloyd Wright in his homes used to kind of hide the entry so that the visitor would experience more of the site, and he would sort of hide it along the side, not immediately visible from the street or from the driveway. If you think about falling water, you have to wander down the path across the bridge behind the back of the house, and you finally find the entry. Or the Roby house, same thing, which is urban house. You have to find your way down the interior property line to find midway through the property line to find the entry. So that could work here. You could enter on the side, on the park side, which is very nice. I might even suggest that you enter at where the dining room presently is, and that way you're coming into the center of the house. You can then split off to the more public spaces of the house and not kind of wedge your way through that little foyer and then crash into the kitchen.
Okay.
I like the idea. I'm not done yet. I like the idea of the amphitheater. Again, the one view where you're down there looking back at the house, you're going to be able to see up underneath there. So it better look good. It better have a good gardener and keep it looking good. Otherwise, you're going to get all the nasty leaves, the dead animals that'll crawl under there and die. And that's being dramatic, but it is true. This is, if you think about that. These are sort of the practical realities that you have a beautiful garden, and you're creating a beautiful outside space in that amphitheater. And I do like the idea of movie night. And so people are going to want to look back at your house, okay? And they're going to be drawn to the underside. I'm going to start it because they're looking up, and the first thing is the underside, and then they work their way up. So that underside almost has to be as nice as the house itself in some ways. So just practical stuff that can make or break the experience of your house. And I think that's all I have to say. I do think the massing is fine. I think, you know, the siding, you got some recommendations from the other commissioners to work on. I do like it. The green wall idea is consistent with your garden. And the idea of, I think your little pavilion in the back is sweet. That's a really nice spot to be. Take some coffee and a paper down there. Weekends, great. That's all good. So, and generally I support the project, but I think you need another round of schematic design and come back here for another preliminary, and then we'll see if you're on the way. That's it.
Okay, Commissioner Pelletier.
This is, I meant to say this before, responding to Commissioner Haynes. You can make the underside of the house another space. I think if you can work with the grade and raise everything up so that that's a place that you can walk around, there's plenty of headroom. You're probably gonna need a pump room or something down there for your boiler and all of your HVAC equipment. But that is another opportunity to make a really cool space underneath the house. So it just needs more focus on it. But I meant to mention that, I forgot, and I think I'm done.
This is Chair Burdett, and actually, she just said what I had been thinking, was you raise that house up just a foot or two and take a little bit of that underground space, and you've got a nice little hideout when you're home and your dad is upstairs with company and you don't want to be part of that, you can go hide out underneath the house in a private area that is somewhat protected because you're going to have your mechanical room, you're going to have your garden room, and whatever else you wind up having to get from courtesy of the mechanical and plumbing engineers. But you've heard a lot of comments. Nothing like getting a crit, but better from us than from when you're at school and you're getting it the hard way then, because you won't get graded here. No, we're very impressed, and this is a really neat plan, and really pleased to have you come back, and we look forward to your next preliminary when you've finessed all of this, and we can sit there and say, yeah, bring the hop forward, and then Dad gets to start writing the big checks. I do have one question for staff before we go on this one. Webster Sewell, is he related to the Sewells of the Horad family?
Yes.
That is
Yes.
fascinating.
Yes, he is. And there is a picture with the Sewell family, and he is mentioned briefly on the marker that we have, but yes, and a bit of that family history is also included in the designation for the Horad House. But yes, same family.
Are you familiar with the Horad House? No. Okay, I just testified last night to the county council about putting the Horad House in Wheaton on the master plan for historic sites. The Sewell family lived on University Boulevard in Wheaton, and they dated to the post-Civil War era, and they owned their land, okay, which was a significant thing, okay. But there were covenants, or blacks could not purchase land back then, okay. They could inherit it, and they could be given it, but they could not purchase it. So the Sewells have what is essentially a truck patch farm, not a huge farm, but big enough to grow crops on that they could take down into DC for the market. When the next generation came, they subdivided that property for their I believe it was a daughter. Her generation, she subdivided it again for the next generation. And that's how that family gave each generation a chance for generational wealth, because they provided property and that the next generation could build a house on. And Romeo and Elsie Horad, Elsie was a Sewell, came from the Sewell family, they were the last ones to get a bit of that subdivided land, and it fronts on University Boulevard. And it has been put on the locational atlas, and we are asking the county council to put it on the master plan for historic preservation or designation. And the Horads, Romeo and Elsie, Romeo was an attorney, and they were both very active in the civil rights movement in the 30s and the 40s and the 50s and 60s. And Romeo, as he was an attorney out of Howard, but he got into real estate. And he and his two partners subverted the covenant system, the racial covenants in Montgomery County, to buy land that they would then sell to black families. So those families could buy the land, build their own home, and start their own quest for their start of generational wealth. And to find that Webster Sewell was related to that family, they were a very important, the Sewells and the Horads were very important people in Wheaton in the first half of the 20th century. So you will be building and continuing the legacy of significant and substantive excellence when you build your house on Dr. Sewell's property. So I really look forward to you coming back and continuing the legacy of the Sewell and the Horad, and now your family in our area, Montgomery County. Thank you.
Thank you. Am I able to respond to?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes, go right ahead.
Okay. I just wanted to say thank you for all of you giving me your time and feedback. I really appreciate it. I have a lot of humility as an architect and designer. I am growing and learning and continuously trying to get better. I'm really proud of this design as far as where it's come from my first design 2 or 3 years ago now. And I certainly will take all of your feedback into consideration and really think about the schematics. I guess more of a question and I guess an update is that I have developed the interior spaces more than you see in the current plan. I actually wasn't aware that this committee honestly weighed in so much on the interior design of the space. And so I kept it very minimal. This was a plan that I had drafted 6 months ago now, and so it has evolved. Certain elements, like you talked about the living room being very cramped, those steps have actually turned into kind of a mid-century modern style built-in couch that becomes a part of the steps. And so that space is really left open and the furniture is part of the architecture. I started doing that in a lot of the other spaces where furniture is kind of built off of the columns. I have a whole package of 30 interior renderings I've done that I didn't include in this because I wasn't aware that was a part of the discussion. I tried to keep it simply like exterior. And I guess my question is, I guess just that, is the interior design something that we would need approval on in the same way as the exterior design?
Well, technically, we deal with the exterior of the house, the massing, all of that, but so much of the interior usually impacts the exterior massing that we do sometimes, advise applicants on the size of their rooms. We will criticize the furniture layout if it's making a room excessively big or it's not big enough to be realistic. You can take or discard our commentary, especially when it comes to the interior, because architects do love to hear themselves talk. But we all come with years and years of decades of experience of setting up here. So take it for what you want to do, what you want to listen to, and think about it. And again, you're not getting graded here. So, but you do have to have, when you come back, probably with a preliminary, because you've got, you know, a structural engineer to talk to and a mechanical engineer and all. You need to have something that is going to be permittable and will pass through us, you know, we'll approve it, and then it'll have to go through the permitting office, so it has to work. And it has to be something that's buildable, that doesn't turn into, you know, a nightmare during construction. So you do not have to submit extensive furniture plans to us at all. We just think you need to get this to a point where you come back with a preliminary, and again, think about what we've said, but it's positioning of interior walls and all, that's up to you and your dad. And, but when it comes to the exterior and the massing, that's, you have to pay attention to what we're saying and talk with staff, because they'll make sure you can get through the process. But we're just so very pleased that you've come so far in these 2 years. It really is a significant difference, and it really shows a great deal of growth and maturity on your part, and we're happy to be part of that. And we look forward to when you come back, whenever that is.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And I'm certainly not discarding all the comments. I just, I wanted to know what I should prepare in the next package and if the interiors should be as incorporated as it could be.
They should be worked out, but that's really for the functionality of the building or the space and for your, you know, your client. But when you come back, it has, for the preliminary, you need everything, all of your thoughts worked out and this thing working. And specifically the structural, the mechanical, plumbing. I mean, you, after us, you go for permit, and you can't,
Right.
and you don't want to have to come back to us to make those changes. You want it worked out in advance. You might want to think about starting to look at materials. You have a lot of wood here. And we've gone through a lot of discussions about porch materials and deck materials. Staff can actually kind of advise you on what we've been talking about.
Okay.
And we talk about it as related to acceptable woods, exterior woods for historic properties. That wouldn't be an issue with you, but it is.
What do you guys think about the Invent Wood?
Um,
Invent Wood, the company that's building the new wood product that's as strong as steel?
I haven't heard about that.
It's a Maryland-based, University of
Oh,
Maryland.
I have heard about that. I don't know, I don't think we know that much about it. We've been talking about thermally modified wood. But, so, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure, really has been.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Okay, we're going to move on to our second preliminary at 23200 Stringtown Road, Clarksburg. Is there an updated staff report? Do we want to report, do we want to take a break? No? What? Can we take a 5-minute break?
Sure, we'll pause for 5 minutes. Members of the commission, we're now back live.
Thank you. And we are listening, reviewing the second preliminary for tonight at 23200 Stringtown Road, Clarksburg. And is there a staff update? or
Yes, there
report?
is, Madam Chair. So this is, again, a second preliminary consultation at 23200 Stringtown Road in Clarksburg. Again, this is at the south edge of the Clarksburg Historic District. It's a contributing resource. The Day House, which is in the corner of Frederick Road and Stringtown Road, was constructed in 1925. And this is to be reviewed under the Clarksburg Historic District Amendment, the Vision of Clarksburg, Chapter 24A, and the Secretary of the Interior Standards. So again, the applicant proposes to construct a Clarksburg branch of the county library system on the property. It'll be approximately 20,000 square feet with 8,000 square feet of parking, most of which is underneath the building. The applicant proposes to extend Clarks Ridge Road. The existing right-of-way is 50 feet wide. It'll be approximately 450 feet in length, and construct other site improvements. So again, just to run past the site, this is across the street, across Frederick Road from the subject property. And then this is looking northeast towards the subject property. And then on the right, you see along Stringtown Road, looking onto the subject property. And then further down Stringtown Road, you see the curb cut there for Clarks Ridge Road. And most of the site is open fields, which have grown up over the last several decades. So the Vision of Clarksburg, which was adopted in 1992, analyzes the character-defining features of the historic district, including recognizing its historic core and identifying a buffer area to create a more graceful transition between the historic and the new. It also aims to maintain building setbacks, reinforce the directional expression of buildings, and the relationship of front yard setbacks and building spacing. So this, tonight we're trying to evaluate the proposed library's size and massing to ensure that the new building will not loom over the historic Day House and ensure that the building form reinforces the character of the historic district. The next preliminary consultation will focus on the design and the materials of the proposed library building. Again, the HPC's evaluation of the library's size and mass will ensure that the construction satisfies the objectives outlined in the vision and is compatible with the overall character of the Clarksburg Historic District. So at the last preliminary consultation, the HPC uniformly was supportive of constructing a library on the subject property, and the commissioners unanimously supported the proposed location fronting Stringtown Road as proposed by the applicant. Three of the commissioners stressed that the massing of the library would be vital so as not to loom over the Day House, and one commissioner specifically stated that the Day House needed room to breathe. Commissioners encouraged the applicant to include more interior site circulation between the Day House and the library. Commissioner questioned the ability of adding vehicular site access from Maryland 355, which is Frederick Road, and commissioners encouraged cleaning up of the corner of 355 and Stringtown Road to remove some of the visual clutter and make the Day House more visible as one enters the historic district from the south. Commissioners voiced concerns that the Day House would not be a priority for the county and encouraged the applicant team to consider a use that would be programmed to operate in tandem with the library, or that it would be programmed to utilize some of the library functions. So again, in the left, you see the site plan as proposed by the applicant with the library building, access along Clarks Ridge Road with access to parking below the library. The Day House is located in the lower left-hand corner. The applicant provided a number of massing elevations and studies. So on the right, you see the flat roof proposal is below the ridge height of the Day House, but utilizing the mass of the proposed building, any other pitched roof will far exceed the height of the Day House. So the applicant provided these axonometric views, again, which show a variety of roof forms that are found in the historic district on that sort of monolithic massing identified in the site plan. And again, here you see the Day House with the building expressed behind it, and you see the stair tower is sort of the one expression to the west that sort of is proud of that western wall plane. That would be here. So the applicant provided these sections, both from Frederick Road and then from Stringtown Road. So you see above that by engaging into the hillside, you've provided parking mostly below grade with a pedestrian accessible building from grade. And then along Stringtown Road, you see again that the day house ridge is taller than the parapet height of the proposed library. And then another perspective view presented by the applicant. So the staff report cited two infill examples. One is at 23315 Frederick Road. This was a 2010 HOP approved by the HPC to construct a 14,000 square foot commercial building. This is located on the property directly to the north of the subject property. So it's a 7,000 square foot footprint constructed in 2 stories. You can see the portion closest to the street is intended to have the form more consistent with the residential architecture found in the Clarksburg Historic District. And then it telescopes out to the rear. The hyphen sort of separates the volume, so it's read and potentially as more than one building or a building with a large addition, but that massing is broken up. The other infill example we talked a little bit about across the street at Hammer Hill in the last preliminary consultation. This is a 13,000 square foot daycare center or preschool built behind the historic house. Again, they use a contemporary palette, but sort of are inspired more by the farming vernacular in the structure's form. And the massing, again, was broken up. The staff report cited that this view would frame the historic building. Again, Frederick Road is much lower, so you're still looking up, but the massing of the preschool was broken up a bit, so it's not a full monolithic side gable building. The lower central portion helps to make it read smaller. So staff finds that the overall form is too monolithic to be compatible with the Clarksburg Historic District, and that the massing studies that attempt to replicate a roof form found elsewhere in the historic district are incompatible due to the building's proportions. Staff finds that the flat roof proposed by the applicants helps the building to have a lower roof than the day house's ridge, but alternative massing strategies could help achieve the same result. So while staff recognizes a monumental scale is appropriate, the building's presence need to be designed so that it's architecturally compatible with the larger Clarksburg Historic District. Some of that compatibility can be expressed through design, not massing alone. Additional information about the massing from other perspectives would be helpful in analyzing the appropriateness of the mass. Staff cited a perspective from Clarks Ridge Road, potentially, or from the other view along Stringtown Road. So this is particularly the case where the finished grade is going to change also, because that view hasn't been presented to the staff or HPC yet. So staff finds that more needs to be done to break up the perceived mass of the building so it better fits the scale of the surrounding district, and that locating a majority of the parking below the library is a positive aspect, which helps preserve more open space to the north and the east of the proposed library. These open spaces help to reinforce the substantial setbacks identified in the vision and stand in contrast from the 2 infill examples which had substantial surface parking. So no additional information was presented regarding the condition or proposal for the day house, which is an issue that was raised by the HPC at the last hearing, and that based on the HPC feedback, these issues remain open and should be included in a future discussion. So staff requests feedback from the HPC regarding the appropriate size of the proposed library, the appropriateness and compatibility of the flat roof, specific recommended revisions of the library's proposed massing. Staff requests that the HPC identify any specific information that would be helpful would help them make their determination of appropriateness for the proposed building's design and mass, and any information regarding the condition of the day house and required rehabilitation work that remain outstanding from the first preliminary consultation. And again, future submissions will focus on the building design and materials. So to better analyze the building's design and massing, staff requests that elevations be presented at scale, especially of all 4 elevations with the next submission, and any other materials identified by the HPC. And with that, I will answer any questions that the commissioners have at this time. That was fast.
Are there any questions for staff? Commissioner Haynes?
Is the curb cut for the Clark's Ridge Road, can that be moved? Is that fixed? I know it's currently there, but is that something that is
So
movable?
Clark's Ridge Road is a recorded paper street, so, I mean, I think it could be moved, but as it stands now, it is, you know, in the plan, and there's already a dedication for it.
I raise that just because I don't know the orientation here, but the right side of the property is not utilized other than being a forest. And if we could move that curb cut, that might give us some utility to change the footprint of the library.
I think if you have, this is Rebecca Ballo for the record, I think if you have any comments or design suggestions along that train of thought, please offer them to the applicant.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Nope, no more questions. So the applicant, thank you very much for your patience this evening on the previous case, and welcome back. And please make sure your mics are on, identify yourselves again and your relationship to this application. Sure. And you'll have 7 minutes to make a presentation before we start asking you questions.
Okay, thank you so much. I can share my screen. Let me see if I can do that. Okay. And can you see it? Okay, yes. All right. So I'm going to put here. All right, thank you. All right, good evening. Thanks for having us back. Again, I'm Antonio Rebello. I'm a principal and director of design at Greenman Park Architects. And I think it may be interesting for you to know that prior to joining Greenman Parker, I actually worked 6 years as an associate architect with a very well-known historic preservation architecture firm in Georgetown. This experience certainly has heightened my sensitivity and has informed the design of many buildings I've been involved with throughout my career. On behalf of this entire team that's on this slide over here, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to share this vision of this library. Also, I want to thank staff, Mrs. Ballo and Mr. Brushert for helping us get here at this point. This is a project that is eagerly anticipated by the community, as we all know, and it represents a meaningful public investment in that community. So from the very start of this project, we identified several key historic preservation considerations that we sought to weave in this vision with the Clarksburg Vision document from 1992. Just a quick recap where we left off. On August 13th, we have established the most appropriate location on the site. One of the positive aspects of this solution is the reduction of the impervious area by reducing open-air asphalt parking area with a garage under the building and minimizing the number of solar panels on the ground to help maintain the rural setting. Because of the below-building parking solution, the most efficient layout of the garage lent itself to be the strongest form generator for the building massing in terms of plan. That form was then carried up and adjusted to provide the most efficient and cost-effective 20,000 square foot library above. Simplicity of form and efficiency of space without unnecessary costly bumps or forms helped inform the design direction of the building, not that dissimilar from rural vernacular architecture objectives seen in Clarksburg. 3 types of parking are provided here with enough space for parking for visitors to the day house as well. As we all know, the site contains the day house, a modest 2-story residential structure with partially exposed basement that is intended to be preserved and continue to be the gatekeeper of the historic district to all that travel north on Route 355 or Frederick Road. There was a request by the HPC for a connection between the library and the day house. And as a result, we listened and added 2 connections to the day house that will allow for people to park in the library and choose between two pathways directly from one building to the other. In this manner, a great effort was placed on the locating the new library with adequate distance from the day house to preserve the desired openness, visual porosity of the streetscape for views and preservation of landscape elements in the interstitial space as sought by the Vision of Clarksburg document. In this way, the new library not only conceals the parking from view by working well with the side slopes, when seen in section, it also provides front door access directly onto grade. Additionally, in order to satisfy the sustainability goals for net zero mandates by the county, the entire roof has to accommodate solar panels in conjunction with rooftop mechanical equipment. Great care was placed in the design so that none of these elements can be seen on top of the building, even from a distance. Another aspect of great consideration for the design of this library was for it not to overwhelm the day house. So besides the distance between the two buildings, the new building roof line is also lower than the day house roof, allowing it to take greater prominence at the corner intersection of the Frederick Road and Stringtown Road. As for building character, we always start by observing the context and understand the nature and essence of the place. As we stroll through Clarksburg, we can see the predominant aspect of the few historic buildings are simple and elegant, practically all of a residential character. Two-story proportions, simple rectangular forms with minimal embellishments, and practically almost all clad in white siding. Roof forms are simple as well and typical buildings of the period. With that in mind, the team studied ramifications of adding pediment or hip roof forms to the library volume, and what we confirmed was that these roof forms would negatively impact the scale of the building, especially when compared to the day house. And very importantly for the project, it would reduce the number of solar panels required to meet the sustainability mandates for county projects, therefore leading us towards a simple overhang and straight parapet solution. Here are illustrations of massing concept studies that led us to the current design for the reasons previously mentioned. Here is a close-up of the selected flat roof option, illustrating the maximum usage of the roof for solar panels. Then, as we kept refining the concept, we started looking at the vertical expression of this building, a building of a civic character, the only one of its kind in Clarksburg. We realized that its civic presence would require a unique design that both respects the area's context while serving as a thoughtful transition between the past, the present, and future aspirations of the broader community of Clarksburg. In this way, we looked closely to the typical predominant materials presented within the historic context, and we aimed to link the new library to the Clarksburg by specifically weaving these same materials in concept in the architecture expression of the new building. In this way, we believe this building will be truly unique to Clarksburg and nowhere else, as the predominant traditional building material of many other areas, historic areas, as we well know, tend to be red brick, which is not the case in Clarksburg. The massing and the building elevations embrace this simplicity and is void of unnecessary elements, just as the historic houses were authentic to the period in which they were built. The building design can be said to have an affinity to mid-century architecture, which respects its context without mimicry, and allows careful articulation of several distinct elements on its facade, diagrammatically shown here in different colors, to balance the scale and proportions of the building. The result is illustrated in the next three renderings. The building isn't overwhelming in height. It is separated from the day house with enough distance to let visual porosity between them as a goal of the Clarksburg vision document. And it, although being a building of its time, clearly presents an elegant and calm composition of elements that in no way detracts from any building in the historic district. Here's how the building presents itself. Mind you, the trees will also provide a visual barrier that's not really illustrated here. And I'm really almost done. It's really a pure, simple box to everything relative to form and the function, and it connects its neighbors through color and materiality. This is the last slide. This is the final view. Let me tell you, we are very excited about this project. We think it will be a great addition to the community, and it will certainly be a great catalyst for folks to come to the historic district of Clarksburg. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Oh, and by the way, I do have a 3D model. If you would like to see, I'll be glad to do a fly through and show you as well, if you'd like to. Thank you.
I don't think we do that tonight.
It's up to you.
It's up to you, Madam Chair.
Oh,
If you'd
they
like
could
him to
do it?
share out this, he could share out his screen to show you, or if you,
Maybe if it comes up and we need it. I mean,
We cannot mail that, it's such a big thing. It's like bringing a model.
yeah, I mean, the little models like we had earlier, that's a special thing that we always appreciate, but when it comes to.
This is almost the same concept. It's
Yeah.
3D, so.
All right, so questions for the applicant. We're questions, not commentary,
I got a
folks.
quickie.
Commissioner Pelletier.
On the, are cars allowed to pull around between the day house and the library? I can't really tell what that,
Yes, yeah.
did I miss that? Okay. So there is parking there?
There is a few there are some parking spots outside. I can, again, share, oops.
I should have the plan here. I saw the plan, but I wasn't sure,
think
yeah,
I-
exactly what that little
I
concrete
think you
pad
need to
is.
driveway. Yeah, there's a
rejoin the
small driveway.
meeting.
Oh, are we,
Sorry, Antonio, are you looking to share out your slides again? I think you need to
I
rejoin
closed
the
the
meeting.
meeting instead of sharing, so.
Okay, no worries.
Bear with me. Join now. All right, I'm joining.
We try not to make it overly
Yeah,
complicated.
yeah.
technology?
I think it's easier to show a drawing.
You know, one moment, I have left the meeting, so I think I have to rejoin and then let you back in. One moment, so sorry.
Yes, but there is a driveway. Yeah, there is. I'll show it to you.
Just a second. Okay. Okay. I am going to rejoin and
Yeah,
let's
yeah, I think
see.
you can see it.
Yes, I see you there. I'm going to admit you. Now, I'm going to leave the meeting again.
Okay.
Don't leave, Antonio. You stay in the meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, let's
Appreciate
see,
it.
let's make sure you can share out
Thank
before I
you.
leave.
I will share my presentation is here. Okay, so let's go to that drawing. I am turning. All right, here. So just for that question, yes, there's a few amount of parking spaces on the exterior, as well as some parallel parking spaces. And there's also access to the day house, as shown here, with this arrow in the back.
But what's the little oval between the day house and the library?
That's
In-
just a graphic thing, it's nothing.
That's the paving pattern.
No, and it's not.
Okay, but there isn't any parking there?
No,
That's my question.
no.
Okay. No, but a vehicle can pull up there?
Yes.
Okay.
To access the day, to service anything that they may need to.
Gotcha,
to need to
okay.
Bring a vehicle back there.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
This is Chair Burdick. To follow up on that, so if the day house is supposed to be a separate use, not tied to the library, then you would need to provide handicap parking to the day house, as well as a means of servicing that you can get a turnaround in. And I'm sorry, the scale isn't quite right to figure out if, where that little green.
So we are providing the spaces in the library because the day house will be considered as part of this, of the library as well. The spaces of the library would serve the day house.
All
the
right,
handicap
that's good to know.
Yeah.
Also, if the function of the day house has evening, they could still park in the,
Yes,
at,
correct.
you know, if it's a restaurant or something like that.
Absolutely.
Okay, oh, that's good to know, thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Doman.
Yeah, this is Commissioner Doman. I was wondering how did you decide on how big to make this building? I mean, did you say you were driven by the size of the parking that goes underneath the building? And then from that, then you determine how big the second floor of the actual library would be? And how did that come out? I mean, do you know how many cars you're gonna have, or how did you do that?
Right.
Hi, I'm Randy Hawkins with Montgomery County Department of General Services, the Division of Building Design and Construction. So I'm a section chief there. And so the county developed the program of requirements for this project. Originally, this building was to be located in Clarksburg Town Center. Eventually, they purchased this piece of land and relocated that library program of requirements here. So 20,000 square feet, which is a typical neighborhood-sized library. So the library size was 20,000 square feet. When we did the initial massings on the site, we moved it all around. We saw this enormous surface parking, and we didn't want to have surface parking everywhere. So we ended up putting the garage underneath of the library. So the size of the parking didn't dictate the size of the library. The library dictated the size of the parking. Just the parking efficiency of drive aisles and that kind of thing helps inform the general proportions of the library.
Okay, and I assume you have a wealth of data from other libraries,
Yes.
like the one in Wheaton here, and
Yes.
as to how many places are underground and how much space you need for the library.
That's correct.
Now, I don't want to sound, I don't want to, but my experience, I use the Aspen Hill Library quite a bit because I live over by Rockville, okay? And Aspen Hill has been downsized. I mean, I used to go there and they had 15 rows of books, and then now they're down to 12 rows of books, and now they're down to 12 rows of books, and there's a lot of empty space that is not being utilized. I mean, are you sizing this on historic sizing, or, I mean, it seems to me that there's less and less need for libraries. I don't mean to be derogatory or anything like that, because I love libraries, okay? But it just seems like when I go there, every time I go to the library, there's less and less books in the library, and it gets smaller and smaller and more floor space with nothing on it. Have you taken this into account?
Oh, absolutely. So as a library designer, I got to tell you that libraries are alive and well, but what's happening to libraries is that they're shifting in terms of what they offer. Now they're becoming really almost like community centers. And they offer a lot of rooms for meetings, for studying. They also offer a variety of media. They offer programs that you can learn how to do a task. Some of them have maker spaces. So you are correct in saying that some of the book collections have been reduced, but this is a national and a world trend, actually, with libraries. But in terms of the vitality of libraries, actually, they are growing. And public and especially young families, it's intergenerational how they are used these days. So you'd be amazed how the things, so a 20,000 square foot library is the size that is appropriate for the size of this community. It's a smaller size of library, actually. It's one of the smallest. The Montgomery County Public Library System, Montgomery County government, and us as experts in library design, we do think that this is the appropriate size for this library. And we'll have the appropriate collection size as well.
And another question, is there any, is there mass transit? Do buses go by this?
Yes.
Is there a place of buses? Or can people just pull up on Stringtown Road and let people out without blocking the road? There's no pull-off in there,
We
is
don't
there?
advise that. So we have created a very purposeful path so that folks that are driving, they can go into safety, and they can pull in and park and go drop a book or go upstairs and pick a book. If you do want to just stop the car, we also have a book drop right in the front door that will allow folks to stop the car, but not on Stringtown, but on Clark's Ridge Road, which is that entrance that we have created, but not on Stringtown.
Okay, is there mass transit? Do buses
There
run up
is.
and down there?
There are 2 bus stops. There's one nearby on Stringtown, further down, and there's another one on Frederick Road on 355, a little bit below the tavern, near where the tavern building is, as you go up north.
And
That's where that
as
is.
far as the day houses, is there any convenient way to park, if it's being used for community purposes,
Yeah, in the library, which is right, and we have provided now
but it's,
paths.
okay, there's a path there,
Yes,
right?
sir. Yeah,
And if it's
yes.
pouring rain or snowing, you walk outdoors to get from one building to the other, correct?
Yeah, you
Okay.
would.
All right.
And
Any
again,
other-
Randy Hawkins.
Any other questions, Commissioner?
I was going to add on one thing for reference in terms of sizing. Only Libraries, 21,000 square feet, White Oak's 20,700, Long Branch is 20,600, Davis is 20,000, Quinch Orchard 18, Potomac 17. Just give us some references.
Commissioner Dominiani?
Can we move the slide to the plan of the library? I believe there was one.
To this plan or?
Yeah, to the plan of the library. Okay, here we go, yes. Sorry, my iPad just crashed and I had all this pulled up, so I didn't
No worries,
reference
no
this
worries.
here instead.
All good.
So as I understand it, the largest room shown here on the right side is going to be where the stacks and reading room is, right?
It's, yes, it's, so that, there are some smaller meeting rooms in there and all that, but yes, that is the public side of the library, where the adult collection, the children's and the teens are going to be.
And the two large rooms, one in the bottom left corner and the other in the upper right corner, those two large rooms which face the day house, what are the uses of those two rooms?
So the bigger one on the top left is staff areas,
Okay.
and the one on the bottom left, it's a community room that can be rented out, that can be used by everyone. Yeah.
Got it. How did you arrive at the arrangement of these rooms? I understand with the elevators and the stairs, et cetera, but it's occurring to me that the perhaps like more private or functional or administrative pieces of this building are the ones facing the historic structure. And I just wondered if that was a consideration at all when it came to laying out
So-
these rooms, which I think then in turn affect kind of the massing or proportions on the outside too. Just if you could speak to that, I think we would benefit from
I mean,
from that logic.
To
Yeah.
tell you the real truth, I wish I could show you the 3D model because it would become very clear how those things, with that,
Sure, go ahead if it helps.
I think so.
Because I think some of us had the same question of why is the stair core facing the historic building?
So the historic building is here. In reality, in between, there's a lot of trees, and this is actually meant to be interstitial space. And we don't think that it's detracting or in any way is an elevation that is less important than that's facing this building here. And as you can see, the grades drop towards the building there. So the way that functionally that the building is organized is we have areas where the way the libraries work, they have libraries vans that move around with books and media to other libraries when you check a book or something. And so we provide an area there for that van to stop. And then there is a connection to an elevator that actually connects that to the staff area. It made more sense in terms of functionality, but it does not, like I said, the way we have organized, as you can see, it does not detract in any way what's happening towards.
I guess my question was more intended to drive at, not only was it going to detract against the day house, but also perhaps like users of the library would be enticed by or see or celebrate the day house as well, rather than only noticing it when using the stairs, for example.
Oh,
I think
actually,
I was
then-
trying to drive it at that
Actually,
sort of question.
that's
yeah.
a great point, because there is a detail which you will appreciate. As everyone that goes to that garage will have to go on this, and again, there's a lot of trees, but there is a window in the stairwell as you come up. And everybody that goes into that stairwell is gonna look at the day house, because that's what's really across there. And I think if you're a curious person and you go on there, you're like, oh, that's an interesting house, and could be signage, could be elements that, and like I said, we're gonna provide two means of connection to that house, exactly from this point. And let me show you so that I'm clear about that. So as you can see here, let me, so if you come off You are in the garage, you can come up the steps, go out the door, go a few steps. Remember, there's a lot of topography here. And you can go in the back, or you can come up in an elevator or the stair, and you go. We made this specifically for that connection, so that you can come up, go on the sidewalk, and go onto the day house. And speaking with the county, we think that there may be a possibility of placing a nice sign, even at this intersection, that will celebrate the beginning of that historic district and kind of promote the day house as part of that gateway or gatekeeper for that purpose. So I don't know if that answered the question, but.
I appreciate the explanation. I think that the other commissioners may have further questions, or we will discuss further during the commentary phase. Yeah, thank you for explaining and for the fly-through.
My pleasure, my pleasure.
Are there additional questions? Commissioner Haynes?
How tall is the facade along Stringtown Road to the top of the parapet?
So let me see here. It does vary. Okay, so it does vary. And the top of the roof, so because of Stringtown does slope, right? The building is really a tall one-story building. It's about 20 feet to the top of the parapet, give or take. And of course, as it goes down, the height increases a little bit.
So the corner closest to the day house is about 20 feet, give or
Yes,
take?
20 feet, correct. Yeah. And again.
And one other question regarding the plan and the community room. You've angled the wall, presumably as a gesture to modify or manipulate the facade. What was the thinking behind that?
The thinking was to break the massing a little bit and introduce an element that actually becomes kind of a welcoming gesture to everyone that is going west on Stringtown. You're going west on Stringtown, you could be greeted by this wall. This wall really is the facade of the meeting room inside, and that was pretty much what we were thinking when we did that.
Is that a double height space?
It's not. It's a 1.5.
1.5.
Yeah.
So it's basically a solid wall minus some strip windows.
It's a solid, yes. You can
Right.
see here.
Yep.
I can show you more or less. So if you're inside, oops,
Cool.
this is what that room is. And there is a partition here, so you can go to the other side. So. Yeah. Anyway, just to give you an idea what that space is.
And sorry to keep asking height questions. The main stack area, that's presumably a taller space than the community center.
Yeah, we estimate it's about like in your lobby here, about 16 feet or so, where the stack is. And right at the facade, we're envisioning having a taller area here to celebrate that community-facing area. But as we go back, it goes down. And there's a very important functionality reason why we did this, because we're actually putting all the solar panels and everything on that roof, and it's behind parapets in areas, so you don't see anything. The idea was we wanted to have a very clean aspect to this, and now this building meets the sky and not overwhelm the day house at all, be actually in the background. And you would notice the building from this intersection, but this is your actual focus. The building is actually subservient to that building.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Doman?
This is Commissioner Doman again. I have a problem, I guess, with the tie between the day house and the library. They don't seem to be user-friendly. I mean, you have stairs that go down. I mean, I'm sure this would not be ADA compliant. And the other problem is, when you go out, if you go out of the library and you're walking towards the day house, you're looking at the back of the house. And I did visit the site, and I did walk around. I did look at the property and everything, and the back of the house looks horrible, okay?
It's not great.
Not a
No,
very
it's not great.
attractive.
No.
And you're gonna put this building next to it, so I assume, maybe I'm wrong, but you would be tackling the day house to make it look presentable the same time that the library is coming up. Otherwise, you'd have a nice building there looking at the back of a horrible rundown house all of a sudden, you know?
If I may comment, this is precisely, I'm glad you said that. This is precisely why we are providing these two connections. So we have a direct connection that if you're an able-bodied person and you are in a hurry to go to the day house, you can get out of the garage and go straight up and go into the day house, either from the back, or we can even later on design a way to bring you up the front. But you can imagine all that slope. But we also provide this direct connection to the sidewalk. So we are actually directing folks not to look straight at the back of the day house and looking at straight as you come out. And then as you walk along this road, the day house actually is a lot nicer to look at as you walk along Stringtown.
True.
But we cannot move the day house the other way around, right? It's facing the way
Would
it's
you
facing.
consider like a skyway, a walkway from the level of the library without having to go down, take those steps, cross that little driveway, go back up some more steps, come into the back of the building? How about a walkable skyway or something like that that floats across all of that ravine right there?
So the challenge with that is that there is really a lot of grade. And the skyway will end up meeting the library's first floor level if you do a skyway. Otherwise, it's so inclined that we would have so much ramp. We did study this, as a matter of fact. And so the solution that we have, the real practical solution is you can take the elevator to the first floor of the library, and you can exit at level, at grade, and then you can walk along that sidewalk, which is a much nicer walk than actually going through that area between the two buildings.
But this little road in the picture in front of us, is that basically just a service entrance that you'd have service trucks come down and deliver to, or is it meant for dropping people off?
No, that is mostly for servicing, but that is actually right now, when we say service, we don't know exactly what the use of this house will be. Currently, there is no access at all in the back at all. So this is just a gesture to say that we are looking at a way to provide a realistic way for a pickup truck or a van to come in the back there if need be to service the house or to do something. But for the users of the house, they have a very nice parking garage that they can park the car and they can proceed through the elevator across to the sidewalk and onto the front door of the day house.
It just seems inconvenient to me. But anyway,
Yeah.
I have a question. That's it.
If I can add on to what Antonio was saying there, right now off of 355, there's a old kind of gravel driveway-ish that goes right next to it. And once the shared use path is constructed, it won't exist anymore. So, we know we need to get some kind of access there, and we certainly don't want people driving in off of 355 to access the house, especially this close to the corner. So this exact shape of this road, it's to acknowledge a road has to go back there to get access up there. The exact form and shape, is to be determined, and that will continue to evolve as we go forward.
This is Chair Burdett. I guess to kind of stay in this area, I'm kind of wondering, the entrance to your library is pretty much centered on its facade, or mostly centered on its facade. And that kind of would say the entry is off of Stringtown Road, except nobody can stop their car and let somebody off at
Right.
that point.
Right.
They have to drive, they have to turn down the road and go all the way to the back of the building to get in the garage. I get that one. They have to parallel park and then walk all the way back to the front of the library. To get to the day house and park, you've got to, again, come out from the garage and walk along that sidewalk all the way around the corner to go in the front of the day house. Why did you not put the entry to your library on that corner closest to the day house and then create a public plaza that would incorporate both, serve the day house and the library? And I understand there are there's a slope there, but slope can be worked out. I just find it interesting that you've got an entrance to your library that, how much walking do people do at that area? The housing isn't that close. I mean, you've got a shopping center across the street, but people have to cross a busy street, a busy road, and a wide road to get across. And I understand there's probably a crosswalk down here at the other street, but
Yeah.
your entrance to your library is halfway between where there would be 2 points to cross the road. I'm not sure I understand. I mean, it looks nice where the entry is, but it's kind of sitting there in its own little world.
I understand, Chair Burdett. I think you make nice points there. We did look at early massing studies. We did look at putting the entrance closest on that side. The reality is the grade is so difficult to deal with that we would end up having to elevate the garage, or having a very tall garage, or having a difficult way to actually navigate into that corner. We, after studying all the pros and the cons, the entrance location actually made more sense from a physical point of view with the grading to be where we are showing it now. And also to provide this experience as you walk into the library, you can experience the library on one side, and you know the meeting rooms are on the other side. So it's kind of like what led us to that solution. I totally understand what you're saying about the day house. To be frank, and Commissioner Doman also pointed that out, that is not the greatest side of that house, the back. And so we thought that making a gesture to put the entrance that is facing that side, even if we could, with the grading and doing all the machinations we could have done to make that work, would that be actually the most we thought that perhaps that was not the best side to kind of celebrate of the day house. And so what we thought was, let's provide a real path so that folks with disabilities can go on an elevator, park the car safely, go on an elevator, get out, go on the nice sidewalk that's over there, and go to the front. It's only 80 feet. It's not really like you walking a block or anything of that nature. And then the day house will eventually, one day, will have the access that will allow even folks with disabilities to go in there, which currently it does not even. So, but that's another design exercise. So,
I guess I'm just, the idea that the best view of the day house is out of the stairwell window is kind of disturbing to me. I do have a question, I haven't lost it on my phone. Why, looking at your firm's work, okay, and understanding the county's telling you what to do, but why, this building, it's not near as big as Wheaton Library, but it's that big box. It's like the box store of libraries, big square empty thing.
yeah.
As opposed to, it looks like your Riviera Beach Library is more broken down
Right.
with a patio or something in the middle.
Yeah.
So even with, and I know you've got a parking deck underneath,
That's-
but you can put outdoor space on top of a parking deck that's underneath. Why is, I I understand a library's best if it's a big square box, but wouldn't have broken up space have been better in this community where the buildings are smaller and you get that cluster of various types of buildings in a rural area as opposed to the box store of a library?
I appreciate that comment. So the Riviera Beach Library is a library that is on grade. It does not have any parking underneath it. The site of that library was pretty flat, and that building is actually at an intersection. So it is where the day house is here, kind of thing, on that site in Riviera Beach. It is a different design solution because of that. When we looked at this site here, this site really is facing a big highway. I mean, Stringtown Road is a big highway. It's not what Riviera Beach is. Riviera Beach is actually within a little community. This thing here is different. It's facing this big highway. We do have this day house in the corner, which we think shall remain and be celebrated. And I do believe that signage to announce the beginning of the historic district on that corner should be something that we should all think about, because nobody actually quite knows where that historic district. But when you look at this library is really facing the challenges of the topography of the site. And also, there was another thing that you may remember. We mentioned this in the past, in the previous consultation. There is a desire by the county to have housing, to have also on the other portions of this site. So even though we have, you know, the size of the site as you see here, and Commissioner Haynes, you did point out, maybe we move the Clark Ridge Road or whatever. Yeah, but then you start limiting these other uses that you could have on that site. So when you start looking at those things, the library goes here, you got all that topography and all that. You have this garage that we're building. Yes, can we put a plaza on top of a garage? We can. Is this the best way of doing a plaza? It is not. It's actually very complicated to do a plaza on top of a garage. Nobody wants to do that. It leaks. It creates tremendous problems. And again, we have a limited space here, and we maximized the 20,000 square foot footprint, and we generated that parking garage underneath it, and added a few spaces on the site to add a little bit of more parking on this building. But those were the kind of functional and kind of the physical imperatives that we had here that led us to the solution that you see. Now, can we have outdoor space? You know, maybe. It depends. Again, there's a lot of sloping that's going on here on the site everywhere. So, but those are great points. I'm not disagreeing. You know?
It just feels like you're still not connecting the two buildings. And even though you're talking about a library function could go into the day house, it doesn't, you're not joining the two in any sort of manner other than just, this is the handicapped route. And sitting there saying the back of the day house is ugly, well, yeah, it is now, but that back of it is a closed-in porch and probably the kitchen, which could be restored back to a porch, which would be a nice place to, you know, have a reading group or something. If
that's a nice solution. As a matter of fact, Commissioner Dominiani, you asked about the oval. I forgot who asked about the oval earlier. Yeah. Oh, Commissioner Pelletier. Yeah, it is the potential outdoor space that we're looking at. I was like, what is that thing? Now I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm looking at this driveway going, okay, how does a big truck turn around? But if it's a big circular plaza that's large enough to would allow a box truck to do a turn, or at least a 3-point, you're never gonna get anything bigger than a box truck back there, then that makes sense. And if it ends up being a cafe, a restaurant, a bakery, whatever, they're gonna need service.
We like that. I
You know,
think
something like
those
that.
are great suggestions, yeah.
So now I'm gonna pivot.
Chair Burdett,
Yes.
if I may, I'm sorry. I would just like to remind the commission, in light of some of the comments that we've gotten from the applicant team, you are not looking at an overall site plan for any parcel or any proposal to the north. There
That
is
is
no,
true.
there is no proposal
Yeah.
to the north. That is not part of this project. So if the county would like to have a larger discussion about all of their plans and how they, interact and how that's impacting the library, that's one thing. But you're being asked by the county, I believe, just to consider their program for the library. So whatever other site constraints they may have are really not relevant because you have nothing to evaluate in front of you regarding that other parcel or what other needs may be driving the road, Clark's Ridge Road, for example, to the other comments about can it be moved, can it be changed? You're looking at Clark's Ridge Road in relation to the library and the access for it, unless the county would like to have a much larger discussion, which I don't think they're really asking to have. So I just offer that.
Okay, thank you. So now I'm gonna, because I think the Day House has a lot of potential, and you guys aren't looking at it. You're kind of obsessed with, let's get this commission to approve our library so we can keep moving. But that's not our problem. That's your problem. So I'm gonna pivot here for a minute. Because the site is what it is, the access, their parking, that's all what it is, I get that, but it still just kind of baffles me that you have an entry that you can walk up to that's halfway between two cross points, and nobody can pull up and park. No one can pull up and drop off in front of the main entrance to a library, which says everyone's gonna be using the parking garage. And everything you're taught in architectural school says, wherever you have an entry, make sure that people can get to that entry. It's not as far away as you can possibly make it almost. But going to the massing and the finishes or the exterior finishes of the library itself, you're aiming for kind of this mid-century aesthetic. Okay. And referencing the materials of a rural area. So you've got your wood, you've got your narrow windows are supposed to recall narrow windows on houses or churches, kind of weak, but okay. Can we get the image back up of the front of the building, the entry?
I'm not sharing anymore.
Yeah. And then the material image as well, or maybe just the front of the library would be the best
The staff
thing.
is sharing.
We can pull that up from the staff report. One moment.
Yeah. I can look it up, I guess. But
I'll be glad to share if you want.
I guess where I'm not questioning your selection of materials, and there certainly are plenty of new materials out there that are wood and would last or replicate wood.
Right.
Not my favorite. Panelized metals, all that kind of thing. You guys did Wheaton Library, and it's been 10 years now since it opened, or 8
No.
years?
A little less, 7 or 8.
7 or 8, okay. And I think like the other libraries in the county are all kind of that box look and panels and colors and stuff like that. Aren't you kind of afraid that it's reminding me of all of these new housing developments all over the county that are the panelized high-rises like across the street here, and they're all over. Everything new looks exactly alike. Different architects, different materials, and they all look alike. Same thing. Are you kind of worried that the libraries are going to start looking alike, and when a lot of stuff starts looking alike, it means that 15 years from now, it's going to look out of date? Because it happens.
Well, time will tell, right? Well, all I can tell you is that on the design of this specific project over here, we have been really careful with crafting a design that is very simple. And we are not enhancing colors or anything of that nature. We're actually embracing the color palettes that we see in Clarksburg, that, you know, predominantly white, and there are barns and there are wood panels, and we thought it would be appropriate to bring those like materials into this design so that, you know, harmoniously, when we compose this, it feels like something that, yes, it is of its time, but it is respectful of what's around it. It's not adding any other colors, it's not adding any other things. The story of Wheaton Library had to do with the community. The community was part of the design of that building, and the community actually chose the color palette. There were a lot of presentations where there were many different color schemes for that building, and they brought a picture of boats in the Caribbean, literally, and they said, this is us, this is our community, this is who we are, and we would like this building to be. I understand, it is a bold building. It's not for everybody. Some people don't like it. Some people like it. We are not there to defend it or not. I'm about this building here. This is another building for this community, and we believe that the design is a very elegant, is very calm, does not impose on the day house. It's facing a major highway. I share with you the door opening and there's a highway and you cannot pull in front of it. I agree, I wish we could, but we also think we need to have a public gesture of the library to the greater community on that road. We are providing a very practical solution for the actual entrance of the building. In no way anybody would not know where the door is. Even if you go to the parking garage, there's a lobby that takes you up, and you are right front center in the library there. We also believe, and we have watched this, that these buildings are catalysts for the community and the catalysts for a lot of things. People do get on bicycles when the weather is nice. I understand when the weather is not nice, they're not. But looking at Maryland, we have almost 3 seasons that we can actually go outside. Perhaps summer is a little warmer, but winter is the one that normally people tend to drive more. But in this community, we are anticipating bikes, we're anticipating scooters, and even walking, because it's going to be a way that people are going to come in. And like I said, these buildings are community buildings. They're not for you to just get a book. They're here for you to learn something. You can go write a resume. You can go take a class. You can go learn a new skill. There's all kinds of things that people do in libraries. And so that's why they become catalysts. I do believe that all the businesses around this building in that district are going to benefit from this building here.
Are there existing bike trails that service the community now? Or?
There is one right in front of it.
Okay.
There is a very large one that is in front of it, which is great because
Please pardon the
it's going to be
Your
where
conference
a
can
lot of
take
people are
less
going
than
to
3
be
participants.
coming in. We did have a community meeting just to talk. We didn't show any designs at all to anyone, but we did talk about the project to get the feedback. And the amount of the demographics that came to that meeting, a lot of them were young professionals with young children, and they were eager for this thing to get going. They were asking, when can we have this building, blah, blah, blah. And we're very excited as well. I hope that you can see that we are really excited with this project. We think it's going to be a great project, and we value your feedback and your concerns, and and you've provided a lot of things already that will make us think.
I'm giving you a hard time about access and all this, because last night I was at a council hearing, meeting, whatever they call it, and I parked in the council garage. And because I didn't know, the signage was terrible, and I didn't know how to get in the back door of the council building, I walked all the way around the block, around to the front, to walk in a cafe, to take an elevator, to go up. And then when I left, I took an elevator down and went out another door and went in the back of the
Kind of
garage.
like us coming here today.
And it was just like, really? Is it that? I mean, and my fault, I didn't actually look to see where the entrance was, but I grew up in Rockville, so I kind of knew where the entrance was. But there wasn't any parking by the entrance. And the parking garage is there, but it's not a obvious route to get in and out. And that's kind of where I'm with this, is like, okay, everybody's gonna park in that garage, and you got an elevator, you got a stairwell, which is, of course, not gonna be really, not gonna be the high point of your library.
Actually, it's pretty nice.
But
We-
it's just things are
We
like,
encourage people to actually go on stairs, and the stair is something that we design. We're not treating it as a fire stair. We are not treating
well,
it
that's
as a
good
fire
to
stair.
know.
So,
There's just some things about this, the layout of this is just like, it just doesn't quite get there. For your exterior materials, you're showing products that look like wood. Is it wood or is it like wood?
so to be honest, it would be like wood.
Metal,
That's
like wood, like,
either metal panels or like insulated metal panels.
okay,
or-
so
or,
a rain screen, like a
y-
Thunder Max, something like that.
Like, it could be, yes. It could, we
Okay.
don't know yet. I think we're
I
going to discuss the materials the next time we meet.
Okay.
But you are in the right track, yes.
Okay.
We want this building to be durable, to stay there for a long time. The county is a huge investment, so we want to make sure that we put materials that are going to stand the test of time.
Okay, thank you. Any other
Thank you.
questions? Oh, yes, Commissioner Prather.
If it's available, I'd like to go back to the view of the library, and I wanted to, in the spirit of public safety, hear in what way would the fire and rescue be really directed to come to the library and react to an opportunity?
Okay. Thank you for your question. Fortunately, this library is practically surrounded by access. Starting with Stringtown Road, if there's an emergency, fire and rescue can go right to the front door, park on Stringtown Road, and go right in. An ambulance, a fire truck, police. It has better access than actually going through a parking lot, meandering through circles and going into a building. So in that sense, it's great. It also has access from the rear, right? You can go on Clarks Ridge Road, and you have side access and you have rear access to that building. Between the day house and this, obviously there is that drive that we are proposing for the day house, and there's also the proximity to Stringtown, which by the rules of fire safety, you have a hose length that you can take from the fire truck and from the Siamese connection in the building that's going to be in front of the building that can connect to a pump truck. And so that is allowed, but we have to design the building to meet all these codes. So
Thank you.
thank you so much.
I do have a follow-up question, and it goes back to accessibility. Certainly, you did point out the seasons here in Maryland.
Yeah.
And certainly, when one is a wheelchair user, the exposure to elements such as wind and rain and things like that can be very complex and hazardous.
Yeah.
It's my understanding that there is parking in the garage for handicap. Can you indicate about how many?
Yeah, sure. I'm not sharing the presentation right now, but I can tell you in a moment.
And would all of the public be invited to the day house? And would it be fully inclusive for all?
I would certainly hope so. Yes, that's the answer. that I can give you now, because we don't have a use right now for the day house. But, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 handicap spaces. And of course, we also providing electric car spaces, vehicle spaces for charging, so.
My last question is, you mentioned unique ways in which the library would connect and celebrate the Day House. Can you cite one or two examples?
Well, again, a lot of the things will tie to the use of what the future use, but I can envision if there is a cafe on that, in that corner, that it would be awesome to go to the library and grab a cup of coffee and go to the library and vice versa. The two would actually help each other. There could be maybe special collections in the library, which would tie directly to the library use, and one could go there by appointment and go consult a book. We have done libraries that have had special collections for Howard County and Prince George's counties, and we know how those things work. So it really depends on the use, but we would know that we would offer this connection that would be a physical connection that will connect you to the sidewalk and to the entrance of this building. And we could also explore the ideas of having in that space, in between the two buildings, have a larger space that could be an outdoor space. And we can upgrade the back of that house if need be later, so.
I think the intent of the county for the day house is to make sure whatever use we pick, it's a good use and people use it. You know, for example, in this building, you know, there was a lot of good thought into that there's commercial space downstairs, but it's not used, you know? And, you know, so we don't want to just, you know, pick that, you know, here it's going to be this, and then it be empty, vacant, not used. We want to make sure it's a really good use, people are really strong. You know, this building's not going to be constructed for, you know, by the time it goes out to bid and gets constructed, it's 3 years from now, you know? So we need to be thinking about the exact use of that. We obviously have to come in and present that exact use, and that's going to really dictate what that space is in between. So what we've really tried to do is make sure that we have the maximum flexibility to make whatever that building is nice, you know, for its use, you know, and we've got a bunch of different connections, and we can make some more, and it's got a lot of flexibility to make it a, you know, really great building. And I think hearing some of the feedback about maybe it becomes a porch, maybe that comes outdoor space, you know, because it is an ugly building on the back, you know, and it can be better. You know, our goal is always to make things better and not just keep it status quo. So our intent is to go back as we determine what that exact use is, get funding from the council, you know, and do it well. You know, we don't like to do projects that aren't done well.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions? If not, we'll move on to our comments. Not that you already haven't gotten a lot of them.
Thank you.
Commissioner Pelletier.
My button's working. I like your library.
Thank you. Thank you.
I think it's a design very much of the time with the zeitgeist. I know we're not supposed to comment, but I would like to see a little bit more development of that space between the day house and library. That's certainly we've kind of beaten that one to death. But I think in general, I like the height of the library. I like the way it doesn't overpower the day house. I mean, the day house, I know it's historic, and it is the start of the historic district. It's currently nothing to write home about, really. So I'm hoping that it becomes something, you know, more than it is now. But in general, I think it's a handsome building. I really like the facade along Stringtown. That's the main street, right?
Yes.
I do think it could use a little more articulation on the side that turns the corner that has the stair and that side entry. In your renderings, it just kind of looks like a big box, and it just sort of goes up and ends there. But I think the facade along Stringtown I think it's quite nice, and it's quite appropriate for the area, and I like the height. And And I don't have an issue, I like the parking underneath, so you don't see it from the street. I think in general, it's a pretty nice library, but it would be nice if it spoke a little bit more to the day house, or if there was some kind of cool little plaza in there or something that kind of related the two together. But in general, I'm pretty happy with how the development is coming along.
Great, thank you.
Usually I follow up at the end, but I want to comment on, or follow up on Commissioner Pelletier's comments. I think you do need to come up with some options in the future for that in-between space, and kind of like think about what 3 uses the day house could be that would be appropriate with the library, like a coffee shop or a sandwich shop or whatever, but at least 3 options that deal with that space in between. What does the paving need to be? What is the terracing? Does it need to be terraced? Is there a space there to create seating in a terraced way to have, I don't know if maybe the grading would go down far enough you could actually hear somebody over the traffic. But, is there, you have to make that space alive and read so that the day house isn't the back of an ugly old house, because the day house is going to get restored. It's going to look fabulous when it gets restored. It's going to be like a living house, and it's going to grab that corner. And I think Commissioner Pelletier made a good point of the way the facade makes that turn and dies into your stair core. That needs to be a lot better. That is just, forms hitting forms, and it looks like the back of a building. It is no better than, I'm sorry, but it's, stylistically, it's no better in its way than the back of the day house daily. So I think you need to look at that corner and the way it goes around and do better at it. I was thinking when I was looking at this plan, your documents in our book, about when you've got a big building like this, and it's not the first big building, been doing that forever, but you have to deal with it, and I think you're trying, and in some ways you've gotten a long ways there, but it has to be, a library has to be warm and approachable and timeless. Timeless, so that 50 years from now, people are still saying, that's a really nice building. I grew up in Rockville, and I loved the Rockville Library, the old one, the one that's gotten torn down. I went there every week and would bring home bags of books and go through all the books and go back another week. My mom just couldn't understand me. But I love that library because it was, a couple of pods of glass, and then the core was like somewhere back in the back, wherever. And it was just such a delightful space full of light and air, and you could see out. And that, I think, is necessary in a library. And the scale, especially in the children's section, because that's where I was going, the scale was right for a kid. And then when I got old enough to go into the adult section, it got bigger. And it was just that kind of transitional effect. But I'm very big in Art Deco. And I was thinking about some of the Art Deco buildings I've seen that are big buildings, but are really elegant buildings. So like the Daily Municipal Building Center in DC here is a lovely building. The Greenbelt School, or the Greenbelt Community Center, is just a wonderful, wonderful big old box that just is a delightful building. In California, I was looking at the architect Irving Gill's work, and he did the Americanization School in Oceanside, and it's just one of those stunning buildings. And of course the Folger Library, another box that just, you're not going to be doing bas-relief panels, I get that, but it's the just everything about it is just so perfectly proportioned and created that it's worth looking back to see what you can do now. So those are my comments. So
Thank you. They're great,
and-
thanks.
Commissioner Galway, you haven't spoken, yes.
Commissioner Galway, could you put page 8 of the staff report? Is that possible to do that?
Sure, just a second.
And then I've got a number of comments, none of which tie together. They're just sort of all over the place, so here goes. In terms of your color palette, you referenced that god-awful brown barn thing that should be wiped off the face of the earth. I would say from a color palette standpoint, if you think brown's important, I would find something else to sort of tie that to then, because I think that's that barn right there on the corner of Stringtown.
Yes, sir, there's one
Every
right
time I drive by it, I think, oh my goodness, they really should take it away, so.
I kind of find it neat, though, but okay.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough, but
yeah,
just
yeah.
my comment.
Yeah, sure.
In terms of, I like the height of the building and the fact that you've worked very hard to keep it below the day house. I think that's really appropriate. From a engineering standpoint, by the time you put a DOAS unit, some condensing units, possibly an emergency generator, figuring out how to get the garage exhaust out of the building since it's not an open garage, getting intake into the garage, you got to look very carefully, because the last thing I want to see as a mechanical engineer is to make a turn and see something sticking up above that parapet. So, and you got to make sure you have enough real estate to do what you need to do. So please just take that into consideration.
Thank you, Commissioner Galloway. Can I say one small thing about the exhaust? Fortunately, we will not need it. We actually are ventilating it naturally. We have enough open area.
You're over 50%.
Yeah, and we're doing that on purpose, not only for the ventilation, but also to provide a nice garage that doesn't feel like you're inside of this bunker. You can see out, so that's what we're doing.
Okay, all right, if the
But
math
thank you
works,
for that.
no worries. Were you able to find that particular page?
I'm sorry, I thought you were finished speaking
Oh,
to
no,
it.
no,
We'll bring that
I
back.
haven't even started.
Sorry.
That's okay. I wasn't even paying attention. You made a very good point that you're saying as you're coming down, going west on Stringtown Road, and I get it, sort of a little architectural flair as you pulled a meeting room, I guess, to the south at an angle. When I heard that, I'm thinking to myself coming down Stringtown, and now I can't even see the day house because you sort of pulled it. It's almost like you want to block the view of that house, and I know that's not why you did that, but that's kind of the impression. Is like, well, now I pulled that out so that now I really can't see the side of the house like I could. If you hadn't have done that, I would have been able to at least see the side profile of the day house. So one of the thoughts that I had, and some of this ties in with some of the other conversation from the commissioners, I'm not certain that you could push the library back without restricting. I know I see how you have the parking and then your drive aisle comes in and turns and goes into the garage, so you may be very tight and your radius might be tight there, and that's probably why you put the extra parking spots against the back of the building.
Yes.
But is there any opportunity to slide the entire library back a little bit to allow the house to be more pronounced or more visible as you're going west on the Stringtown Road? So I'd look at that. And then the other thing, coming up 355,
Yeah.
and right now you have this very stark kind of corner where you're coming out of your elevator, stairwell, whatever that is, and walking around into the center of the building. I'm also a bit troubled by the fact that, hey, I'd want to drop my, 16-year-old daughter, say, off at the library, and I'd be so inclined to just want to be able to pull up and drop off, and we can't do that. Is there any opportunity to pull the building back a little bit off the street and maybe have a small circular drive where you could just pull in, something to just think about? The center makes sense, the entrance, because you've got meeting and back of house toward the west, and then you have the main library proper to the east. I get that. But is there an opportunity to take that corner and make that the entrance? Where, as you're on 355 and you look towards Stringtown and you see not the corner of the library with the entrance down the road a little bit, but maybe somehow by taking the opposite approach, rather than pulling that angle out, maybe you can push that angle back, which sort of gives you a more of a connection between the house and make the entrance more on the corner of the building, moving your meeting rooms toward the east, flipping the meeting rooms and the entrance, kind of doing something like that. So I'd love if you'd maybe just take a look at it and say, I'm, wet behind the ears and it doesn't make sense. But, maybe there's a way to make that entrance even more pronounced, because truthfully, I think the center entrance where it is almost is more ceremonial and an architectural feature than it seems to be a practical solution. This building is a really good example, and you mentioned that earlier. I mean, it's crazy. You go into the garage, and unless you have access with some sort of access card, you got to go outside and you got to walk around the sideways to get to the revolving door. The entrance is where it is because of the building, not because that's where all the people want to come in, because there's so many people who do, in fact, park in the garage. I just think it's an awkward way to get into the building. So I just would ask if you'd look at that.
Thank you.
That's almost it. Let me see here. And actually, I'm not in agreement, Commissioner Duman, you mentioned about the connection, overhead connection. And I think the separation is important. And I think if you tried to do something, I get that it makes it more convenient, and people in a wheelchair or something aren't getting wet, to the comment that was made. But at the same time, I think if you tried to connect this building to the day house, we've just lost the opportunity of creating that separation. So I think I would probably not be in big favor of that, but it's to each his own. So I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Commissioner Haynes?
Oh, wow. It's been so long, I forgot what I was going to say. Overall, I think the size is, you've made a good argument for the size, square footage of the library. I appreciate the analysis of the local vernacular materials and how one interprets that and applies it to a modern building. I also appreciate that this is not a house, this is a civic building, and as such, it needs to take on a certain presence on the street, as well as the community. And certainly, I think you've done that in a reasonable way too, in terms of the massing, at least the height, not necessarily the massing. Well, I'll get to that. So I think a lot of things are working well. But I do have a concern. Our new commissioner, I forgot her last name, I apologize. Braither. Thank you, Commissioner Braither, who is brand new today. Her question about public safety and particularly if there's an ambulance that needs to come up to the building, certainly stopping on Stringtown Road is not ideal. Turning on to, what was it, the side?
Clark's Ridge?
Yeah. Now they got to get around, they got to go into the garage, I guess, get into the building. I do think there is a practical need to have at least a lay-by. And I would like to, I think part of the scale of the building, because of the sort of edge frame, if you will, highlights the horizontality of the building. I'm wondering if there isn't an opportunity, I'd like you to study this, if you took the community center and the common stack area, if you shifted those, or kept the community center space there, but shifted the stack back along with the garage, and that would give you some sort of plaza space, if you will, and push the entry back. I don't know if it's desirable to have exterior access to the community building, if that's the library's closed, but there's a community activity there, maybe it should have its own access from a plaza. But I think that's an opportunity to break the length of the building by offsetting those two programs and creating a reasonable lay-by and some outdoor space. You know, people would like to sit outside on days like, well, not today, but last week when it was nice. And that could then, and I was also wondering if there couldn't be a play of the height then, if it needs to be all the same height, or if you could lower even a couple feet the general stack area, and therefore, again, give it some additional scale. I think the building is a nice design, but it kind of is, open up a page of progressive architecture, and we see a lot of this stuff. So I'm not sure it's unique to Clarksburg. It's getting there, use of the wood material, et cetera, but the fenestration, the fenestration is very contemporary. I don't see the relationship of the analysis of the windows to the historic context, and I think that's wishy-washy. But I do think there's some opportunity with the massing that I'd like you to at least study for the commission about push and pull and creating a lay-by plaza, outdoor space. Since you got a lot of cut and fill on this building, so you certainly have dirt there to create that. And yeah, you'll have to rework your parking a little bit, but hey, you guys are good, so you'll get it done.
Okay.
That's it.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any more comments from anybody? Then that's it. You've heard our comments. The staff will collect them and give you a list as they did last time. Obviously, we are concerned about the connection to Day House and that it's not this forgotten thing, and it needs to be restored and maintained and used. We don't want it sitting there like other properties I know about. We want it to have a use and a function, and there are plenty of examples in this county that are thriving in adaptively reused in historic properties. And you've heard a little bit of everything from all of us. So I think we can give you some good information to go away with and come back with.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
We're all a little
Thank
tired
you.
by now, so, but thank you very much, and good to
Thank you.
talk to you.
Thanks, same here.
I think you have a good idea of doing 3 different.
All right, we are now tax credits, Group 6.
So this is our last batch of the tax credits, Group 6, for your consideration this evening. We would just be looking for a vote that you approve our transmittal of the tax credit to the Department of Finance. But happy to answer any questions if there are questions about any of the cases.
Would anybody like to make a motion? You're working on it, or not?
Be happy to. I move that the Historic Preservation Commission approve the Group 6 of the Historic Preservation Tax Credit and submit to the Department of Finance.
Do I have a second?
This is Commissioner Dominiani. I would second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimously approved. Next, porch and floor design guide.
So we had prepared, a presentation and discussion on this. I don't know if the commission, we are happy to do that if you would like. We are also happy to put that on the next available agenda.
I think putting it on the next agenda would be a very good idea.
Agree.
And I do apologize, we have gone on very long tonight. We've been verbose, I guess. Meeting minutes, did anybody read them? Commissioner Doman, did you read them? No? Yes?
This is Commissioner Doman. I have read the minutes, was it for the 3rd? September
Yes,
3rd?
September 3rd.
And I move that we approve the meeting minutes.
Commissioner Galway, I'll second.
Terrific. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Approved, meeting minutes. Commission item. I don't think I've got anything.
So you did speak at the University Boulevard
Yes, I
public hearing, and you will be speaking at the Clarksburg public hearing later this month.
Yes, next week, I believe.
Okay.
That's a daytime meeting, I believe.
It is. It's on Thursday, next Thursday during the day. A reminder for, a reminder for the commissioners on October the 8th, because we have to do the changeover for your board books. Please try to come at 6 o'clock if you can. If not, we might be able to do it after the meeting, but please do come early for that meeting so we can update the software on your board books. But we will also be emailing materials out to you, because after September 27th, your board books won't work anymore. And look to the website for the staff reports. Excuse me?
Early.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure, no problem.
And in case anybody is like me and you have a old Windows 10 computer or laptop, they are quickly coming up to the point where that Windows 10 will no longer be supported, and
That was July. It's come and gone.
no, it's November.
Oh, I thought it was July.
No, it's early November, and they won't be supported. So all it means is that your Word documents may or may not work. So get yourself a new laptop or desktop or whatever. And that's it, I believe. Thank you, everybody. And again, Commissioner Prather, welcome. This is our life.
It doesn't always